It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. Donald Trump's your president. We're off and running. We got an entire show planned for you, including talking directly with the White House correspondent. It was in the cabinet meetings yesterday, and we're going to talk Greenland with him. Lots to cover. We're also going to dive into the Postal Service. Is the Postal Service the next agency to feel cuts? Should it be privatized? John Hickenlooper even raising concerns from his perspective on this. I think it should be privatized. We'll debate that in the 7 o'clock hour. In the 8 o'clock hour, Larry Don Suckla, Scott Bottoms joining us to give us an update on what happened yesterday at the state legislature on Senate Bill 3. Bad news for those of us that appreciate the Second Amendment. The fight now towards the governor's office as that passed the House. You're not going to want to miss these speeches. Very, very powerful. We'll talk with two of those gentlemen that were part of that fight yesterday. And then the Signal scandal. Bill, do you know I added Kyle Clark to my Signal chat with my wife?
Oh, did you? Why?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I just figured we're just randomly adding journalists to our Signal discussions.
Yes.
I thought it would be apropos. Just, Kyle, come on in.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the conversation.
But, Secretary of Defense Weekend News host guy says not a big deal and it's a lie, despite the fact that the administration has confirmed it already. Yeah, good job.
Trump not asking Walz to resign. We'll get into that. Want to hear your thoughts on that. So phone lines open 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. Now it's time for Blake Olson with the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good Tuesday morning, 44 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 70 today in Denver. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the Atlantic's editor-in-chief Jeffery Goldberg, who pushed 3 or 4 bigger hoaxes, or the big hoaxes of this decade, is doubling down on his claims. He was accidentally texted plans about airstrikes on Houthi targets. Okay, let's kick off the outrage right now. Let's see. He says he learned about the plans in a group chat. They included Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth discussing sensitive information. Goldberg says Hegseth discussed the specific time of a future attack and human targets meant to be killed. Here's Hegseth after he landed in Hawaii.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, he said nobody was texting war plans. There may have been texts out there. We'll see. I don't think it's a big deal, but I'm sure
it's weird that they're denying it, because I thought they confirmed it, at least yesterday before I went to bed.
So did I, but what he said right there, nobody texted war plans. So there may have been texts about other things, but war plans, quote unquote. That's what I got from it. But you know what? Okay, whatever. Pete Buttigieg.
But here's and we can kick the show right off on this debate now. We can get into the 9 o'clock hour, but I think this is spices. So let's just dive right in. Does the journalist have a responsibility to notify the people on that chat that he's been mistakenly put on this?
I think so. I mean, evidently they were communicating with him, right? They have his name, or they were trying to be transparent with him if he did get on that text. So it was a mistake. But then I'm sure everyone on the left is going to say, oh, my God, they're such idiots. Can you believe this? War secrets and everything going on.
Oh, yeah, that's Pete Buttigieg right there. The
Yes.
pearl clutching is quite interesting.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up booty fudge. Here you go.
The U.S. Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, the Vice President of the United States, and other very senior, very powerful Trump White House officials, it turns out, discussed highly classified war plans, not only on an unclassified channel, but accidentally and randomly, it seems, including a journalist.
Oh, my God. You know what? I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. How do we know that they didn't set something up? I don't know. Whatever. How can I take him serious? He thinks men can have babies. And, this is not a serious person, even though he likes to make people think he is a serious person. But we'll see what happens with that. I think it's going to be, you get through it. If you make a mistake and you use these
exactly.
apps,
You made a mistake.
Yeah,
You made a
exactly.
mistake. It was on these phones. You thought you could use it. Maybe you weren't clear.
Yeah,
Whatever.
maybe whatever his name, Goldberg, maybe he should definitely not be on their list of contacts at all. Maybe they shouldn't talk to him. Maybe instead of, if they were, trying to work with him or whatever, and all of a sudden he's on their contact list, well, let's kick him off. I don't trust that dude. I don't trust the Atlantic. I don't trust the media. How about that? An Aurora police sergeant is on administrative leave after an officer-involved shooting early Monday. Officers spotted a 16-year-old boy who appeared to be breaking into vehicles in the area of 1035 South Elkhart Way. The teen ran away, but he was later found hiding in a parking lot north of the original location. Investigators say the boy ran at police, refused to comply with orders, and was shot in the leg. A knife was recovered at the scene. The teen was hospitalized and is expected to recover. An appeals court that evidently thinks they're more important than the will of the people trying to defeat the president. DJT wants to continue to deport criminals using the Alien Enemies Act, but judges who care more about illegal criminals than American citizens are holding up the process. Leftist Judge Bozo Boasberg blocked the process, claiming the illegal criminal gang members are entitled to individual hearings. Of course they are, to determine if they are indeed gang members. Okay, if they're not gang members, they're illegal and they need to go home. See ya. The FBI launching a new task force to investigate recent attacks against Tesla. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has called the attacks domestic terrorism. And Representative Jasmine Crockett, if you missed this, we had this, I think, in the 7 o'clock hour yesterday, of Jasmine Crockett of Texas. She's a play actor, threatens Elon and Ted Cruz, but doesn't think it's a big deal. Sounds like inciting violence to me.
I think that you punch. I think you punch. I think you're okay with you okay with punching.
You okay with punching? She's on this play acting thing. She's getting paid big money to act like she's a street thug.
I think, and I love Colin, and I think towards the end he started to punch a little harder. But, it's Ted Cruz.
It's Ted Cruz.
This dude has to be knocked over the head, hard, right?
So he has to be knocked over the head, hard.
There is no niceties with him, at all. You go clean off on him, right?
You go clean off on him. If that doesn't mean physical violence, I don't know what does.
And I think that there are even, people believe that, I don't know what people believe, but I can tell you the truth is that I get emails from independents, Republicans, and Democrats. I get Republicans that call the office.
Oh, I believe that. And they're in the deep state and they're dirty, and that's who we're trying to clean out.
I get people that say, listen, we don't necessarily agree with you on everything, but we support you.
Yeah, we want to off people, no doubt. I believe that too. AG Pam Bondi not having it.
Your words have consequences. And what happened after she said that about Elon Musk, she's a Texan in her own home state. After she said that, this morning, 3 explosive devices were found in Austin, Texas. So she needs to unequivocally denounce the violence. She must apologize immediately, not only to all Texans, but to our country, to the American shareholders of Tesla, because she is promoting violence.
I'm looking for the apology. I haven't found it yet. Still need to look, though. Louis DeJoy, the head of the U.S. Postal Service, has announced he is stepping down. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Bulls over the Nuggets, 129-119. Avalanche play host to the Red Wings tonight. And CSU head basketball coach Niko Medved on his way to Minnesota. They have named him the head coach of the Gophers. 41 in Englewood, 42 in Northglenn, and 44 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
The Democrat Party these days, they're not really a political party anymore. They're just a theater troupe that is funded by George Soros.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Springtime in the Rockies. Beautiful weather over the next 3 days, maybe the next 4. Temperatures in the mid to upper 60s and sunny today. Sunny with low to mid 70s Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Overnight lows will be 30s and 40s. There might be a slight chance of an afternoon shower, isolated thunderstorm Thursday. A better chance of late day showers Friday. Do be ready for colder temperatures and increasing chances of showers of rain and snow this weekend. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, guys, let's talk about your hair. You're losing it. You desire to have it back. Then Advanced Hair Restoration has the easiest guaranteed solution. Their simple one-day treatment offers life-changing results. I've seen it with my own eyes. Guys, it's not magic, but close to it. They put hair where you need it the most, and bam, it grows. It's actually science. Advanced Hair has it all. Top-rated Dr. Tanya Paul's modern technology, and best of all, you get your own natural hair that begins regrowing the very next day. Advanced Hair even guarantees it will grow for life. So schedule your free consultation now, 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver and has changed the lives of tens of thousands of people. So don't wait. Check out the before and afters online for yourself. Here's the phone number, 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR, or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. Bill was out late last night.
Yes, you were with some of your favorite friends.
Oh, they love me.
Yes, they do.
There. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I went to the Jeanette Vesquera protest outside the ICE detention facility here in Aurora, Colorado, and talked with some folks there and got some interesting perspectives on the nature of open borders and whether or not Venezuelan gangs are really a problem in Aurora. And Yeah, Jeff, those videos, those were just kind of exaggerated. So we'll be talking about that in a few minutes. So the Prime Minister of Greenland criticizing this week's trip to the country by Trump administration officials. White House correspondent Jon Decker has the latest. And then yesterday, media brought into the cabinet meeting. Excited to hear his perspective. Good morning, John. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Hey, good morning. That's right. I was in that small group of reporters that was in the cabinet meeting yesterday, and the president asked a question about this visit by the wife of the vice president, J.D. Vance. That's Usha Vance, leading a delegation that will also include the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, the president's energy secretary as well. They traveled to Greenland on Thursday. The president said during the cabinet meeting that they were invited, official visit by Greenland, but Greenland's prime minister immediately put out a statement saying that is not true. They were not invited officially, unofficially, informally. This is, three individuals who obviously have important titles that are traveling to Greenland the same way you and I could do it, using our passport. But there's no official welcome wagon that will take place on Thursday when they arrive in Greenland.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this because I was watching the press conference and he kept saying, people are inviting us, and some officials. I noticed it was a little bit of a tag on there. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the official leader position on Greenland with regards to President Trump and the possibility of America taking over Greenland, and the people there? Is there a division there that's taking place?
No, there's not. There was an election that took place just a few weeks ago in Greenland, and the citizens of Greenland overwhelmingly have indicated that they do not wish to be a part of the United States of America. The Prime Minister of Greenland has said no interest in being a territory of the United States. And the Prime Minister of Denmark, Greenland is a territory of Denmark, has said Greenland is not for sale. So what's the possibility of the U.S. acquiring Greenland? I think it's a very small possibility. I can't put odds on it. I'm not going to go to Vegas about it, but it's very small. And the reason I say that Denmark is a member of NATO, I can't think of one instance in which one NATO country, the United States, took over territory from another NATO country, a member of NATO, and this would be a first. I think it would really damage NATO, perhaps irreparably, if the U.S. Tried to acquire Greenland through military means.
We're talking with Jon Decker, White House correspondent. Now, in the president's response regarding Greenland, it seemed like ships, China ships, Russia ships, he seems to be wanting to address that issue. How does the Greenland talk factor into the ship issue that's taking place around there?
Well, Greenland strategically is an important part of U.S. defending our homeland, and that's the reason why we have a military base there. The United States has a military base there, and many people may not know this, but during World War II, the United States had 37 military bases on Greenland. They obviously have diminished in terms of size, scope, number over the course of the past few decades, and there's nothing to stop the U.S. from inquiring or asking, could the U.S. put more military bases on Greenland's territory? I'm sure, as a NATO country, Greenland would accept that, but that's not where the president wants to end things. He wants it actually as a part of U.S. territory, and I just don't believe that's going to happen.
We're talking with Jon Decker, White House correspondent. He was in the cabinet meeting yesterday as a member of the media covering this upcoming trip from a few folks, part of the administration, heading to Greenland. Jon Decker, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show this morning.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, interesting. I don't know if you caught the cabinet meeting, Bill, that was taking place. You kind of went around and each person bragged about their accomplishments, but Jon Decker now bearish on whether or not Greenland would become part of the America. So
yeah,
I wasn't aware of the vote that took place. I'm trying to track everything.
Yeah, I saw the votes,
do you know about the vote that took place?
Yeah, it was just locally, and the idea they don't want to. and in part because of the change of there are certain things that Denmark allows them to do, and the change as far as the U.S. What I can't figure out is where we're getting the money from. You know, the whole idea that we're going to go and just purchase Greenland, they're not going to give it to us. And I thought that we were so worried about debt and fraud and waste and abuse, and we were doging the government and cutting down on payments and cutting aid payments, and now we need to go buy a large island in the middle of the ocean. It's a weird set of priorities on this one. I don't understand why or what the issue is behind it, given the fact that Denmark's a NATO ally. That's the weirdest part about this. It's not as if we wanted to do development for natural resources and we wanted to do things with defense there, they wouldn't allow us. It's just weird that we think we need to own it. It's a very weird thing.
I don't think there's going to be an invasion force or a takeover of Greenland in that capacity at all. But and Jon Decker got to it at the end there. When you get to know how Trump thinks and works and the deals that he wants to do, oftentimes where he lands or initially what he wants to talk about isn't necessarily where we're going to land. So, yeah, we're going to talk about Greenland, maybe acquiring Greenland. We're going to send delegations over there. But then when Trump yesterday during that cabinet meeting got into the shipping issues with Russia and China in that part of the world, that's ultimately where I think they're going to land, maybe strengthening a military bases there. That's probably where we end up, at least in this administration. Maybe in the future, Greenland will eventually become part of the United States, but I think it'll take some time. It seems like they're trying to win people over. You know, they're sending folks over there and establishing relationships. But ultimately, where I think they're going to land is just a stronger military presence in Greenland.
Which we could have done if we just walked in and said, hey, you're a NATO ally. How about we do this together? We didn't have to go through all this BS. If we were just coming in, they're a NATO ally. Walking in and thinking that our NATO ally isn't going to say, yes, you are going to pay for this and set up bases there and do the other stuff and provide more security for our land and watch over the shipping. Duh. That's a pretty easy thing, especially when you're talking about military investment and building that would be done on the island that would be a growth revenue for them, and then U.S. citizens that would be there and stationed that also would help the economy because they would have to go buy food and fuel and other things. Yes, that's a bonus, but we pissed off NATO and we pissed off Europe because we started off with stuff like this. If you wanted to do this, you come to them and say, hey, can we work on this together? Rather than, hey, we want to take over part of your country. It just backwards way of going about doing it, because now their back is up, and now they look at this as an adversarial conversation rather than a conversation between two NATO allies as far as how do we make this secure.
I see it differently. I see it as a place where they're going to land and be quite content and happy now that, okay, we're not going to get to the place where the United States completely owns Greenland, but we have a good working relationship with them. Everybody's happy. It's just a part of the deal. It's part of the art of the deal.
But we had a good working relationship before we started this Greenland BS.
I don't know.
Yes, we did. Yes, they were strong NATO allies. Yes, we absolutely did. Yes, it was a very strong working relationship. Yet we messed it up because we decided to go the island.
I don't see dealing and wheeling and dealing as messing up a relationship.
When you start off with this, the wheeling and dealing could have been, hey, I would like to do this. Let's talk about a beneficial relationship, and we're going to build this and make this capital investment on the island, and this is how this works out, and this is great for everybody. Oh, wow, that's wonderful. Thank you, NATO ally. I appreciate you doing this. Rather than going to your friend or your neighbor and saying, I'm going to tear down part of your backyard, and I'm going to take over part of your backyard. I don't like what the backyard is. You want them to do something bit different with their backyard. You want to help them develop the backyard, but you start out with telling your friend you're going to take their backyard over. That conversation is never going to go well.
Yeah, well,
it's never going to go well.
Join the conversation, 303-696-1971. Where does this Greenland issue finalize? Vice President's wife heading over there we ran out of time with Jon Decker, but Mike Waltz is having quite a morning.
Yeah, he is.
and that name came up in particular. And I wanted to ask Jon Decker, do you believe that Jeffery Goldberg had a role and responsibility in notifying the people he was on the text message thread with that he was on there? Sorry, I mean, you can blame Mike Waltz, okay? That was a mistake. Jeffery Goldberg with The Atlantic willingly stayed on the text thread knowing he probably shouldn't have been on there. Where's the real scandal in that? We'll get to that as well. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line, 720-819-5115. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We got hot phone lines this morning. Let's go to him. Tony Littleton. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Both those issues that you've opened up with are kind of important, and so let's start with the Goldberg in the Atlantic. I don't know how much you've read and what you've been able to take on board so far, but he was approached by the National Security Advisor, and that was not unusual. That happens. He thought there was going to be some conversation. Then other people started getting added over the next 24 hours. And then he thought, okay, this is probably a ruse. This is somebody, not even government people trying to trap a reporter into reporting some information that's not true. So he wasn't really trusting of it. But then as that developed over the next 48 hours and all the people that were coming aboard, he realized, no, this is the real deal. And we as Americans should be concerned and be happy that this reporter discovered this. He did exactly the right thing. He did not report out the details, and he's talked about this. He did not report the details about the what missiles and what planes and what ships and what locations and who was being targeted specifically, because he knew that would compromise national security. But his big question was, how can you have the director of the NSA, all the cabinet heads from state and military and all these people, the vice president, and none of them seem to know that they are not to be communicating on that site, that app, on top secret. They're set up with computers and phones to have those conversations. Most of them have skiffs in their home that they can set in and have those discussions. In addition, that conversation was set up to go away, that it'd be erased after some period of time. That's illegal too. You can't erase anything. That's supposed to stay forever. So the handling of that incident, the scare is this how they've been handling others? Two, does Russia and China already know because they've tapped that line? Because it is a public domain. So this is wrong on every single count, and it isn't going to go away. Then you had Hegseth just lie to the American public and say there were no war plans. There was specific war plans, and there are at least one and maybe two CIA operatives that now their careers are over because they were named in those conversations, and now their careers are over.
Right? How are their careers over?
Because they've been compromised. There's no way that
Jeffery Goldberg didn't mention that.
Not that Jeffrey Goldberg has compromised them, but he does know. He's one. Two, again, Russia and China may very well have heard the entire conversation. They may have heard the whole thing just like Goldberg did. That is speculation, but because that's why they have to use
in that conversation. In that conversation, they even specifically mentioned needing to go to high-side computers with regards to the actual war plans, which that is where the classified systems go. What you see in that text message thread is generally a debate as to whether or not this is the right move at this time or whether or not they should wait a month.
Yeah, Jeff, there was a lot of conversation, but Goldberg indeed had the entire war plan, and that's why the government is already
exaggeration. He didn't have the entire war plan.
Hegseth put it out 2 hours before the first bombs. He put out the entire plan, and then afterwards, everybody came in and said, "Great plan," and they sent over their emojis.
He didn't put up the entire plan on there. They talked specifically about high-side computers
I just
and
want
the
to say
role
this,
of having
though.
classified systems.
According to Jeffrey Goldberg and his writings in The Atlantic, it says, according to him, the plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing. So he was giving
enough. The entire plan.
I know, but again, I think it seems like we're arguing whether or not there was a PDF attachment that said, "Here is the war plan." He seems to have gotten details he should not have been privy to that outlined how the attacks were going to be taken, what time they were going to be taken, and the targets involved. That's pretty darn close.
Do you think at
to
that
ticking
point,
off
though,
a war
Jeffrey
plan.
Goldberg needs to notify people?
No.
That's crazy to me.
As soon as that was over,
you're
the
literally
first call,
sitting there. You know it. This is why
I do want to get to the second subject.
The reason he didn't want to notify anybody because he wanted to write this article.
No.
He waited. This is a guy that has a
look,
history of going after conservatives. The entire Atlantic is organized around this. If he was a good journalist, he would have notified those guys early on that maybe he shouldn't be a part of this.
Jeff, think about what you're saying. He seems to be the only one that knew all the rules. He knew they were not supposed to be on that site. He knew he shouldn't be getting the war plan, regardless of what you want to call it and what semantics. And then he reported it back to the National Security Advisor after and said, "How could you do this? You had me on here the whole time."
You had me on here the whole time. Yeah, there's no responsibility for Jeffery Goldberg to notify the folks that maybe he shouldn't be on this text thread.
We're lucky as American citizens that they maybe have stopped what is really sloppy.
He could have done that early on. He waited. He got the whole information.
Jeff, I know.
Then
he
wrote the article in an effort to target conservatives.
No, he did not. No, he didn't. Hang on. Wait, hang on a second. He did not sit there and wait to target MAGA.
Yes, he did.
No.
He could have easily notified them early on that he shouldn't have been a part of this.
Nope, no, not at all. I totally disagree with that because Jeffrey Goldberg outlined the issue. When this arrived, he thought it was BS. He thought this was some sort of counterintelligence where they were trying to loop in a journalist and give them fake information. He thought this was coming from China, Russia, or another series of actors because his first blush was there's no way the command and control system inside the U.S. puts me on this type of a chat. There's no way they are this dumb. They can't possibly make this mistake.
Signal.
Yeah, and then as it rolled out, he talks about it inside the article that he waited to see confirmation of did these attacks happen on the time frame and did they attack the targets to verify whether or not this was a legit chat. Once that happened, he dropped out. He waited to see if it was real, and then he dropped out. And you know what he didn't do? He didn't rush and publish it. He went and talked to the people involved and got verification. Is this signal chat real? Did this happen? Yes. Once they confirmed it, he brought it to the table. If he was trying to torch conservatives, he would have started leaking things. An unidentified source says, and he would have gone immediately out there.
An unidentified source. He had the whole story at that point.
And
he didn't have to leak it.
But the idea is he could have stayed. He could have stayed in the chat.
Material.
And he could have stayed in the chat to watch it. He waited to have confirmation that it was legit chat, and then he left. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. It's exactly
I think it's all an excuse. He could have early on been like, guys, I don't know. Hello, why am I on this chat? What is this all about?
He doesn't know they're real.
Because he thought he was getting scammed, he just hung around?
Yes, he wanted to verify whether or not this was real.
I don't buy it.
No, here's the reason. If it's a scam, then he goes out and reports, hey, I was tried to scam. We have unknown actors coming from North Korea, Russia, or China that are trying to do X, Y, and Z. That's the story. He did exactly what he should have as a journalist. As soon as he confirmed the story was real and he had access to information he shouldn't have, he dropped out. He did exactly what he should have done.
We as Americans have no idea how many times since the inauguration that those high-level groups have been using Signal for their messaging.
Yeah, we know the mayor
hopefully this brings it to a stop.
Now, Tony, were you equally frustrated when Mike Johnston was using Signal?
I was, for a record.
Yeah,
I was.
You were.
I was pissed about it.
But I'm asking Tony.
Yeah, I torched both of them.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm a fan of following the rules on top secret stuff. They've got all kinds of tools. They didn't need to do this. It's pointing to me that they took over. They got a bunch of people who are rookies. They fired off most of the people who could have advised them, hey, this is not how we do this. You can't do this way. And they might have stopped it. But there's no adults in the room that corralled these guys in all the way up to the vice president. And they're all voicing their opinions about this and that. And those sites that were given and the names that were given, Goldberg sat on it. He's not publishing it, but they know it's out there. That's not good. No, I'll leave that. I'll leave
Tony,
that subject quickly.
we got to go to another caller, but I will point this out: the Signal program preloaded on a number of those devices and agency computers in the circuit when they got there. So I think, in their view, they thought they could use it. But I mean, with Mike Johnston, they willingly were trying to get around any type of FOIAs. I haven't seen that in this particular case. Let's go to Pete Centennial. Good morning, Pete. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Jeff, I think you phrased it in a very good way that Goldberg stayed on the text willingly. But it sounds from the conversation, that was a pretty rich dialogue with the previous caller, but it seems like there's a lot of extrapolating and contorting the facts to meet our arguments. So I would just like to make a simple point. The battle against the Houthis is, I think, every American recognizes their attack on the Red Sea ships. And how many people in the Denver area have relatives that are on those ships? And how absurd it is the way we've been, fighting drones with $1 million missiles. I mean, the whole thing is absolutely absurd. But the bigger question is at what point do we, as Americans, bury the polarization between Republicans and Democrats, left and right, and realize we're all together fighting a very serious battle that are killing our loved ones, and whatever they're doing over there right now, it's the right thing to be going after the Houthis because of what they're doing.
Now, Pete, I got a question for you there.
Yeah.
During the Biden administration, the accusation was that if President Biden responded too strong in places like the Houthis, going after them, that was encouraging a larger Middle East war and involving Iran because it's another Iranian proxy. And that was the argument that Joe Biden.
Who, though?
That was the argument that Joe Biden is going to lead us into another world war because of Israel, because we're going to get this larger conflagration that is going to expand across the Middle East.
And but so we weren't supposed
conservatives? To do it. Yeah, I'll go back and I'll go look to see about the quotes.
I don't remember conservatives believing that the Houthis were somehow drawing us into another war.
Yeah, because they are proxies of Iran. And then, so we're going to go to war with Iran now. That was the argument. That was the argument that if we get more involved and we make these larger attacks, especially in nation, inside the country, then that brings us closer to a Middle East war with Iran.
So
was that correct or not? I mean, what's your feeling on that? I just want your feeling on it.
Well, just following your logic there in your argument, Billy, are you suggesting that going after the Houthis at this point in time, regardless of all of that argument, are you suggesting going after them right now is the wrong thing to do?
No, I think that we should have responded stronger to the Houthis personally, but I'm not in charge, nor do I think I should be. But what I'm looking at is that what I'm hearing is in the Biden administration, we shouldn't, as America, respond too strong to these things in the Middle East because then it creates a larger, wider war inside the Middle East, drawing Iran into a one-on-one conflict with the U.S. And now, with a change in administration, it's viewed as a move of strength, and the Democrats view it as a move of weakness. So I'm just saying that the opinions on this, and from my perspective, have flopped 180 degrees based on the administration in the White House. That's the only thing I'm pointing out.
You're characterizing the Biden administration or the reaction of the Biden administration. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I really don't recall that reaction. But I think arguing these points, we're still arguing left and right, Republican and Democrat, rather than looking at the issue for the issue. We've got loved ones on those ships, and the world trade is dependent upon
and what was interesting in that text message thread was J.D. Vance and others debating whether or not this was our responsibility or Europe's. Fascinating. All right, we'll continue. Pete, great call. We got you choose the news coming up. Phone lines are open, by the way. I think this is going to be a hot morning. Lots of conversation in the Atlantic with an article out. The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. Jeffery Goldberg writing on that. Who do you hold responsible? We'll get to all your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. This morning's going to be spicy. We're talking the Atlantic story on the editor of the Atlantic being included in a group text thread about the attacks taking place in Yemen. We'll get to that. But a moment for some levity. Let's do some You Choose the News, Bill.
Yes, it's that time of the morning where we get to make questionable decisions. It's America's favorite fake radio news game show. You choose the news. I've spent moments this morning scouring the interwebs to find very, very dumb stories about us humans and give them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. Why? Because, well, we are left unsupervised this hour. Nobody wakes up until 7 a.m., so we are going to take full advantage, just like we did when we were teenagers. Isn't that right, Jeff? That's a story for another day. Alrighty. Blake Olson is in the news department. Jeff Hunt in the studio. Here are your headlines, gentlemen. Headline number 1, were no magic beans available. Headline number 2, Olympics goes X Games. Headline number 3, so what's your point? And headline number 4, refreshing approach to bribery.
Let's
Mr.
do
Hunt.
Olympics goes X Games.
Yeah, the Olympics are going to go X Games if Australia has their way. The year
Breakdancing?
Well, actually, the year was 1982, and we're going to be talking about a Queensland city and an area in which they are going to, in the Olympics, going to be hosting, hopefully, the premier rowing events for the Olympics. Now, the interesting part is the place in which they have chosen is very familiar to Mr. John Lever. He still fondly recalls the very first time he ever saw the very first one at Rockhampton's Fitzroy River, about 500 kilometers north of Brisbane. He's talking about saltwater crocodiles. Yes, more than 4 decades later, Lever runs a crocodile farm home to more than 3,000 of the world's largest living reptiles on a mangrove-fringed island in a swampy estuary, about 25 kilometers east of the central Queensland city, and also the site of the Olympics. This is where they want to host the rowing events, where they have large saltwater crocodiles in the water. What could go wrong? Whatever.
It reminds me of the swimming in Paris with all the
poop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
we're gonna
exactly.
take our world's best athletes
and put them in
and deal with things that.
I just want to know what the criteria is for hosting an Olympic event when you can have crocodiles in the water. If this was an opportunity, we should have been doing this a long time ago. I'm just saying, it would have made it much more fun. Just if that's what you get to do, add the crocodiles. In fact, let's add tigers to that biathlon race. Let's see what happens. Thinking out loud. Yeah, why not get some excited orangutans into that pentathlon and just see what happens? Okay, just saying, if we're going to go this way, why not? Okay, Blake Olson in the news department, sir. Were no magic beans available? What's your point or refreshing approach to bribery?
What's your point?
Yeah, so what is your point? Here we're traveling to lovely Colorado Springs. Yes, right up the road. Colorado Springs Police Department said they have arrested a man for robbery. Police say they were called out late Sunday evening to a store off of North Newport Road for a robbery. When they got there, they learned the suspect, identified as Antonio Taylor, pointed a gun at the clerk and began to take items. However, Mr. Taylor didn't actually show up to do his dirty deeds with an actual gun. He was using what we did in preschool and kindergarten and up until about 6th grade, finger guns. Yes, he pointed his hand as a finger gun and said he was going to rob the store.
That's a good way to get yourself shot.
Yeah, I just am looking at who's afraid of that. It doesn't say here in the story whether or not he did it in the pocket of his jacket or something,
Just
which makes it more
throw a can
believable.
of soup at somebody like that,
or just showing the finger guns. You're like that's the thing, and that's a robbery at the finger.
Did he
guns.
have a glove on?
Yeah,
or was
doesn't
it...
say. Yeah, It just says he pointed a finger gun at the person and then started robbing things. That's not very threatening. I know exactly, but be careful where you point that thing. You never know if it's loaded.
Exactly.
Yeah. Alrighty, Jeff Hunt, sir. Were no magic beans available or refreshing approach to bribery?
No magic beans, please.
Yeah, were no magic beans available? That's what they're asking after a senior White House official has hinted the possibility of the U.S. using our gold reserve in Fort Knox to acquire Bitcoin. That seems brilliant. Bo Hines, executive director for the President's Council of Advisors on Digital Assets, suggested in an interview recently the U.S. could capitalize on the gains from its gold holdings to purchase more Bitcoin. Because gold has held its value intrinsically over hundreds of years, and Bitcoin is a computer chain of characters. What could go wrong? I see the transfer of value immediately. How could we be this stupid to look at the idea that this chain of characters inside a computer is obviously as valuable as gold? This is not going to end well. So yes, we may be selling off our gold in order to buy Bitcoin. Great. That's fantastic.
Not a good
yeah.
idea.
Oddly, we're only buying the Bitcoin that the government officials are invested in. That's weird, too.
Say
That's
Bill
strange.
is on the gold standard. Call him back for the gold standard, huh?
I'm definitely not in favor of the Bitcoin standard, where that is.
Silver's
That's
really
the end of
good right
Houston News. Back to you, sir.
All right. Speaking of silver, we could go into Leadville and Baby Doe Tabor and all that stuff. I'm a big fan of that history in Colorado, but we got a lot to talk about. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS, the most famous news station, according to progressive, socialist, communist activists. Because they see me coming at any of these events,
Really?
and boy, oh boy,
Hey, that's fantastic.
they know who we are. So tip of the hat to all of our new listeners from the Communist Party.
That's fantastic. Welcome. Hello.
We are
Give us a
notorious.
call. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And
Like
like I point out to them, because they like to tell people not
Yeah.
to talk to me. And I'm like, I host a radio show where you can call in and share your perspective. And they're always like, but Jeff, you edit those videos and you cut us off. And I'm like, here's a radio station where you can call in and share your perspective for the whole city to listen to, because that is who we are here at 710 KNUS.
Yeah, and you had a shadow at the event yesterday, didn't you?
They like
They
like to tell folks, hey, don't talk to this guy.
Now, that's interesting. You know, I was thinking about that off the air, and I'm just going to sidetrack us just for a second. In the future, in that situation, it might be really good to ask the person, not the person is, saying, don't talk to him, the other person in front of him, to ask, why do you think he's afraid of you talking to me? You're here to protest, to make your voice known. I'm giving you an opportunity.
Yeah,
I'm going to play this, and I want to hear why you're here. What is the reason? And I want to ask you this. And then if the person says, don't talk to him, don't say, hang on. I'm talking about free speech. I'm asking you, you're here to express your voice and your opinion. That's all I'm asking for.
Yes.
Why is that dangerous? Why is he scared of this? And if he continues, say, you really should ask yourself why this person standing next to me is very, very, very afraid of you expressing your First Amendment rights and telling me why you're here.
Yeah, that's a great response.
Why are they afraid of it? Ask yourself that.
And I went up to Jeanette Vizgueras, a communications person, and I just said to them, I'm with 710 KNUS. Look, we've had John Fabricatore on to explain his side. You have the opportunity to come on a radio show that broadcasts all across the city of Denver and broadcasts all across the country on our YouTube channel, and just share your perspective.
Yeah, just tell us why and what you're doing.
You have the opportunity. And this Antifa person, all masked up, tattoos around their eyes, I can identify you based upon, if you're gonna wear a mask, don't have tattoos near your eyes. Because we can still kind of identify
facial tattoos in and of themselves. Questionable choice.
He comes up and he's like, "Don't right winger," and I'm like, "Well, I'm a conservative, yes, but I also host a right, left, center talk show.
Yeah, but again,
you can have your perspective.
It is.
But what are you afraid of?
Yeah,
to your
what are you
point,
afraid
Bill.
of? What are you afraid of? What is the dangerous thing that's going to happen here by asking this person's opinion, listening to it? What is the danger of asking this person on the radio show and having them express their opinion? What are you afraid of? That's the question. You ask them.
Absolutely. And they're always welcome to come on. By the way, I'll have the video of my interviews with folks coming up here in the next day or two. But
editing sucks.
It is
being there is good.
It's
Editing
just
sucks.
interesting to be in a place where people know who you are. They don't really like you, but we go out there to cover their perspective, to showcase what they're thinking, and they're always welcome to call in. So all of our new fans who are communists and socialists, welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show. And someone I'd really like to introduce our communists and socialist listeners to, Blake Olson with Blake Olson News.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
.43 and clear in Denver.
Blake would be your best friend.
I want to go to those things.
There's so much anger. It's interesting. They just sit there and stew. There's this one particular guy. I've got to figure out his name, but he just sits there and he just stews. He's so angry that I'm even in the room. Yeah, he's with the Communist Party of Colorado, Denver Communists or whatever. And I'm just sitting there going, and you know me as a Christian who believes in redemption stuff, I just sit there and I'm like, I'm going to pray you turn into a pastor. I think God's going to work on your heart. It's like awesome. you pick the wrong guy. You're angry at a praying guy. And a praying guy is going to pray for you.
Exactly.
And then all of heaven is going to come down and work on your heart, and you're going to repent and become a Bible-believing Christian and a pastor, and we're going to have a good laugh one time about how you as a communist used to just sit there and give me mean eyes.
Does he have gray hair?
He does, actually. Yeah, 100%.
They all have gray hair now. They're all older than me. How does that work? Is that even possible? Yeah, one of these days I'm going to get down there with you and help you out.
They're every day. I talk about this in the video I'll put out later, where I'm like, okay, Thursday I did the teachers union protest. Friday I did Bernie Sanders. Monday we did the rally at the ICE detention facility. I didn't even go to the postal service rally that took place on Sunday because I run a ranch and I got to spend at least a few days hanging out with my kids and family. But
exactly.
like,
Dad,
what the hell happened to the state of Colorado to where it's like every single day there's just leftist activists getting together for a protest?
No wonder they're really concerned about Social Security.
Exactly. Well, and USAID funding. That's
yes,
but I will.
exactly.
Here's the message, and I'm jumping ahead to what I want to cover tomorrow. Okay, and this is what I say in my video at the end. Everything Donald Trump is doing is working.
Yes,
they are so angry. They are, I mean, people are getting pulled and put into ICE detention facilities. This one guy, like, absolutely loses it. And he's like, we can't take it anymore. And I'm just like, bro, Trump, Homan, you guys are delivering. It's driving them up the wall. They don't know what to do anymore. So they're just gathering outside an ICE detention facility at this point and singing songs. Wow. But gosh, this is what Colorado's become, a daily leftist protest.
Yep. Petri dish for mental health. 43 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 70 today in Denver. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, a fire is burning at the sugar mill property this morning near Longmont. Hopefully it's about out. It's just southwest of the Fox Hill neighborhood. And crews continue to work this hour. So use caution if you are in that area. The editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffery Goldberg, who loves hoaxes, is doubling down on claims he was accidentally texted plans about airstrikes on Houthi targets. He says he learned about the plans in a group chat that included Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth discussing sensitive information. And I agree with Jeff on this. Maybe he should just notify them, write a story, and then if he wants to be critical, fine. Goldberg says Hegseth discussed the specific time and future attack and human targets meant to be killed. Hegseth.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Jon Decker was in the cabinet meeting Monday during the press session, and John was on with Jeff and Bill last hour and says that Greenland is not interested in selling their country to America. Is there any division there?
No, there's not. You know, there was an election that took place just a few weeks ago in Greenland, and the citizens of Greenland overwhelmingly have indicated that they do not wish to be a part of the United States of America. The Prime Minister of Greenland has said no interest in being a territory of the United States.
Also during the meeting, Elon exposing more fraud and corruption.
The Small Business Administration, where they were handing out loans, $330 million worth of loans to people under the age of 11. I think the youngest, Kelly, was a 9-month-old who got a $100,000 loan. That's a very precocious baby we're talking about here.
Well, you got that right. The FBI has a new task force to investigate recent attacks against Elon's Tesla company. The FBI urged the public to exercise vigilance and look out for suspicious activity. Some of the things these commies have done to Teslas and the dealerships is just disgusting. Not only dangerous. In case you missed it, Representative Jasmine Crockett from Texas over the weekend.
I think that you punch. I think you punch. I think you're okay with you okay with punching. You know, I think, and I love Colin, and I think towards the end he started to punch a little harder. But like, it's Ted Cruz. I mean, like, this dude has to be knocked over the head, like, hard, right? Like, there is no niceties with him. Like, at all. Like, you go clean off on him, right?
You go clean off on him.
And I think that there are even, you know, people believe that, I don't know what people believe, But I can tell you the truth is that I get emails from independents, Republicans, and Democrats. I get Republicans that call the office. I get people that say, listen, we don't necessarily agree with you on everything, but we support you.
Yeah, and we're criminals too. Here's AG Pam Bondi.
Your words have consequences. And what happened after she said that about Elon Musk, she's a Texan in her own home state. After she said that, this morning, 3 explosive devices were found in Austin, Texas. So she needs to unequivocally denounce the violence. She must apologize immediately, not only to all Texans, but to our country, to the American shareholders of Tesla, because she is promoting violence.
Yep.
In your area, make sure you know what it looks like to protest and to be able to raise your voices and to exercise your constitutional right to free speech.
This was Crockett on Monday.
And what we see is that they want to dull our free speech rights. They want to make sure that those that are participating in the press, because we saw that there have been recent attacks specifically on this news organization, they want your...
She was on MSNBC. There's a difference between free speech and saying that you're going to knock someone's head off. Fox 31 reporting on a victim of road rage that happened on I-76 near Pecos on March 1st, just before midnight. The victim thinks it was a blue Volkswagen hatchback that fired gunshots into her car. She had her 3 children in the car with her. Her femur was shattered. The suspect is still on the loose, and she's hoping someone can aid to help with safety in the area. Once again, a blue VW hatchback in a road rage incident on March 1st. The Bulls over the Nuggets, 129-119. Avalanche play host to the Red Wings tonight. And CSU head basketball coach Nico Medved, now the head coach of the University of Minnesota Gophers. 40 in Highlands Ranch, 41 in Westminster, 43 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Springtime in the Rockies. Beautiful weather over the next 3 days, maybe the next 4. Temperatures in the mid to upper 60s and sunny today. Sunny with low to mid 70s Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Overnight lows will be 30s and 40s. There might be a slight chance of an afternoon shower, isolated thunderstorm Thursday. A better chance of late day showers Friday. Do be ready for colder temperatures and increasing chances of showers of rain and snow this weekend. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to talk with our friends over at First Liberty here in just a second. Texas Senate passes a bill requiring classrooms to display the 10 Commandments. We'll get to that, but I want to talk to you first about my friend Dan Kaplis with Dan Kaplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Kaplis, the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law, the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551 or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. All right, Billy, were we able to connect with Matt? Fantastic. So I love the folks over at First Liberty. They're doing really great work, and they wanted to let us know that the Texas Senate has passed a bill requiring classrooms to display the 10 Commandments. The bill is similar to those passed in other states that require privately funded passive displays of the 10 Commandments in schools. I think this is fantastic. I love the fact we're doing this. This is something we're never going to get done in Colorado so long as the crazy, godless progressives are in control of our state. But they're getting it done in some other states. Matt Krause of Counsel at First Liberty Institute joins us this morning to give us some insight. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show, Matt.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, we're a right, left, center show. We have a lot of listeners that are more independent-minded, I would say, than conservative-minded. They may have some challenges with this, but tell me why you think this is a good idea to have the 10 Commandments displayed in schools.
Yeah, I always think it's good for our students to know our history, our country's principles, our founding, and the 10 Commandments is a part of all that. Y'all may be aware that in the Supreme Court case of Kennedy versus Bremerton back in 2022, the Supreme Court said, hey, we've used this lemon test in regards to religious displays, public displays of religion for about 50 years. Well, that's a terrible test. We need to get rid of that. And instead, we need to replace it with the history and tradition test. So if there's a practice or something that has a history or tradition in America, that should be allowed. And there's really no document other than maybe the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence that has the history and tradition in our country that the 10 Commandments does. So I think it's very helpful when those 10 Commandments are on the walls. Kids ask about them. They're going to say, why do we have that? Well, let me tell you, because it goes back to the founding of our country. Our legal system was based off a lot of these precepts and principles. And you go from there. And I always think that that's a beneficial thing for our students.
We're talking with Matt Krause with First Liberty Institute, Texas Senate passing a bill requiring classrooms to display the 10 Commandments. Now, Matt, you sound like a Christian nationalist. You're trying to drive your religion on and force it on everybody else. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I always think that's interesting. First of all, what's your definition of a Christian nationalist? We saw in the media a couple of years back that one media personality's definition was if you believe that there's something higher, a law higher than man's law, then you're a Christian nationalist. And if so, yes, that's me, because I do believe God's law is higher than man's law. But when they say you're trying to establish your religion or you're trying to force your religion, I always go back, well, which religion are you talking about? Is it the Jewish religion? Because that's who the 10 Commandments were given to first in the Old Testament. Are we trying to establish that religion? Is it the Christian religion? Well, if it's the Christian religion, is it the Catholic part of Christianity? Is it the Protestant part of Christianity? Is it the Baptist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist part of Protestantism, if that's where you think it is? So I think when people say you're trying to force your religion on somebody, the 10 Commandments are so ubiquitous, have been used for so long in so many ways. Even Islam, I think, shares about 80% of the 10 Commandments in their teaching. So I think it's a hard case to make that you're trying to establish or force a certain religion on somebody when it's a document like the 10 Commandments that has been so ubiquitous throughout world history, but certainly American history as well.
We're talking with Matt Krause. He's with First Liberty Institute on a bill requiring the display of the 10 Commandments in schools in Texas. Now, y'all from where you're from may not have to deal with what we deal with, which is Colorado is as blue as it could possibly get. I think we might be the most progressive state now in the country. Bernie Sanders and AOC just given a rally on Friday where tens of thousands of people showed up. I was there, and it's like progressive, okay? I like this because our schools have become godless cesspools of Planned Parenthood indoctrination. They write the bills, they write the curriculum, they force schools to push this stuff. It's terrible. Our schools aren't even delivering on basic reading and math scores. In fact, in Denver public schools, 80% of kids in middle school cannot meet the math requirements. 80%. So they're churning out these little leftist indoctrinated activists, not delivering on what's important. Then you have all of these kind of personal problems of kids skipping school, stealing, all that stuff. I like the idea of the Ten Commandments up there because it's holding them accountable to a true God that lists out, these are the rules. We don't steal. We don't commit adultery. We don't murder. All those things that, look, if we're going to teach kids comprehensive sex education, why not teach them that there's some good with these 10 commandments that they should be following that? And so I like the idea of the fact that, this is actually teaching morals to kids in a public school system that oftentimes wants to teach kind of progressive morality. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we talk about that as well, in that whether you're, whatever your faith denomination, whether your faith heritage, if you believe in God, if you don't believe in God, it's still beneficial to have those words of honor your parents, don't steal, don't kill, don't do all those things, don't lie, that we try to ingrain in our students. And that's the other thing that I think is an important point, is that all those commandments at one point, all 10 of those commandments at one point in American history have been put into our law system. And so when they say, well, again, why is the 10 Commandments so important? It was really the basis for the legal system as it progressed from the time of the Romans to the time of Blackstone to the time of the founding of America, that all those bedrock principles were founded on the 10 Commandments. And so if we can ingrain those in our students, like you just said, it's a good thing to remind them, don't steal, don't kill, don't lie, honor your parents. Those are all very healthy and good things. So sometimes I'm a little perplexed at the opposition to it, because those are things we should all agree on that our students should be doing and applying in their lives.
Matt Krause with the First Liberty Institute joining Jeff and Bill live. So tell me, what do you believe, what is the purpose of putting the 10 Commandments into the classroom with the kids? What is it going to accomplish? What's the goal?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is what we just talked about, is just that reaffirmation that there's a code by which our country was founded upon. It's a moral code. It's a code that has history and tradition in America. And it's good, I think, for the students to ask questions. You're going to have students in Texas schools next year and throughout saying, why do we have that up there? What is the purpose of that? And that's going to give us a great opportunity to educate the students on the history and tradition of America and Texas, especially in regards to the 10 Commandments. So I think it's a teaching tool. I think it's a learning tool. I think it gets some of that history back into the classroom. And I think it's something that will be beneficial on multiple levels. And I think it's going to be really good for Texas school children when this law goes into effect.
So help me understand, Matt Krause of the First Liberty Institute. Is it about history? Is it the history of our laws? Is it the history of our founding? Is it about morality? You dance through a lot of different subjects there that I would submit we could accomplish with other documents. That all of those things could be fulfilled to a greater purpose using different documents than the 10 Commandments. What is the core purpose of putting the 10 Commandments in there? Is it reminding people about where we came from and the founding of this country? Is it about morality? Is it about our founding of our laws? What is the system? What's the reason? If you're going to answer that kid, why do we have the 10 Commandments on the wall? You would say we have it on the wall because what? What's the main thrust?
Because it played such an important and vital role in the founding of our country, that we want to remind students of its importance. And so I think you have to look back at the Supreme Court test as well. Now they've instituted this history and tradition test, because we get that question a lot. Well, if we're going to put the 10 Commandments up on the wall, should we put something from this religious text or that religious text or this cultural text, even the New Testament, right? Should we put that up there? And we always respond that, really nothing has the history and tradition in America that the 10 Commandments do. No other religious text, no other document has that. And so I think that gets us back to the crux of it. That is, it satisfies the constitutional test. It's going to be applied to it, that history and tradition test, and it's going to be beneficial for the students to have that history lesson whenever it's brought up.
Well, yeah, but is it really beneficial based on the history lesson? And you went back to the idea of laws. Most of those aren't laws. I mean, adultery is not against the law. Honoring your father and mother is not against the law. Honoring the Sabbath day, that's not against the law. None of those are having another God. That's not a law.
So,
there aren't a lot of those.
But what's
that are
important
laws.
to understand, though, is that prior to the 10 Commandments, historically, like in world history, You didn't have a lot of laws written down.
Yeah, you did.
That was part of the big impact of the Ten Commandments.
No, but you'd go back before.
Yeah,
go back to the Code of Ur-Namur. I know that's one that you don't like, but that's much closer to
India?
our. But again,
and how does that impact America?
But again, that is a codified list of laws that a lot of these grew out of. In fact, some of the Ten Commandments are born out of that as well. So the idea
I don't think that's historically accurate.
But again, it follows along the same same lines.
Moses read.
No. I'm saying they follow along the same necessarily lines as far as sociologically.
Right. But
they follow the same thing. But the very
did
first
it influence America? Did that influence America?
Yeah. Yes, Ur-Namur's laws did influence America because a lot of the things that we base our system of law on is found in that code. A lot of the laws that were based in the European nations that they brought over here were based in that code. A lot of that is found there. If you want to talk about the origins of laws, that's
you got
closer
two
there.
people who aren't attorneys, but Matt, go ahead if you want to. What was the name of that document?
Ur-Namur.
Ur-Namur.
Yeah, he's an old king, and he set up basically the first codified systems of laws.
Go ahead.
Where it started.
I think you can draw a direct line from Justinian's Code, which is the Roman law, the kind of first codified Roman law, which said it had its basis in the Ten Commandments. You draw that line from Justinian's Code to more of the Roman law going forward to Germanic and canon law, which is ecclesiastical law, kind of came together. Then you kind of had some of the English common law that came out of that. On top of the English common law, you had Blackstone's commentaries. We know from a lot of our founding documents that our founding fathers used Blackstone's commentaries, a lot of the foundation for our legal system as well. And so I think you can draw a pretty straight line from the Ten Commandments to the legal system in America. But I think it's also important to note, as we did earlier, all the Ten Commandments, even the ones that you can term the religious ones, have been codified into American law at some point in some state, in some place. And so I think that adds to the history and tradition of that. So I think you're going to see that all of these laws had some kind of purpose and foundation. And you go back to the early education in our country in the 1700s and 1800s. You look at the textbooks, you look at the New England primers, you look at the McGuffey readers, you look at Webster's education books. All of those infused the Ten Commandments into education. And so I think, again, you go back to that history and tradition test. Only since 1980 has the Supreme Court said you can't have the Ten Commandments up on schoolhouse walls. That means for almost 200 years you could. So I think we're just having that return back to common sense that this is a document that played a pivotal role in our country's history. We used it in education for hundreds of years in our nation's history. Let's get back to that and continue to teach the kids about those foundations.
We're talking with Matt Krause of Counsel with First Liberty Institute. My perspective on this is the left has no problem pushing their morals through education. We passed a law, comprehensive sex education. I looked at the curriculum. Their morality, they're happy to push right through into our schools. But you want to bring the Ten Commandments up? Oh, my gosh, now we're getting into religious tests and religious education, all that stuff. Matt, you did a great job. Thanks for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill show this morning.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Great talking with y'all.
Matt Krause with First Liberty Institute. All right, what do you think of this? Feel free to give us a call, 303-696-1971. What's that?
The other documents work better than the Ten Commandments. I mean, based on the goals that he outlined, and if he talks about it, why wouldn't he just do the Roman law, the Justinian law then? If that's the basis.
There's three major influences in America, Roman, Greek, and the Old Testament.
Yeah, but we don't go back through the Old Testament and go through all sorts of other rules, etc. We just seem to pick and choose. And I just
but
say
those
that
10
if the
commandments
goals are
were absolutely foundational.
But a number, yes and no. But because they weren't codified into laws necessarily. There are pieces. But if you talk to the kids right now, almost none of them are laws. So are they really that important? Yeah, they that important to our country when they're not laws.
Let's go back to them in my mind.
They're not laws.
All right, we got to get to Rory O'Neill coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It is a spicy morning. We've got a whole lot to cover. Joining us now, Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent. Is the Postal Service the next agency to feel cuts? Should it be privatized? John Hickenlooper speaking at a rally on Sunday here in Colorado, defending the post office workers. We'll get to the phone calls in a second. Maria, Kent, stick around. Rory, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Sure. Good morning.
So, Postal Service, are they the next ones to get cut by DOJ?
Well, it's possible. You know, we saw the Postmaster General resign yesterday. Louis DeJoy was actually Postmaster General for the past 5 years. He was appointed during the first Trump administration, but has a falling out with DOJ and not really a fan of some of the proposals that have been tossed around, including moving the post office under the Commerce Department. Look, there are still 635,000 postal workers across the country, but it lost $9.5 billion last year. And there are questions about what the Postal Service is going to look like in the next 20, 30, 50 years.
Right. There's a lot of debates on both sides of this. People pointing out, well, the post office is the only thing actually mentioned in the Constitution with regards to a federal agency. So should we keep it around just because it's in the Constitution?
Well, right, but how it's designated is rather vague. The real issue, too, is some of these post offices are the stepchildren of members of Congress, and they're very protective of them. So, you know, no member of Congress wants a post office closed in their district, and that's one of the struggles, because it's not just an independent agency. You can say, well, FedEx makes a profit or UPS makes a profit, and the post office loses billions. Government inefficiency. Well, they're also required to be open on Saturdays, and they can't just close down post offices like FedEx or UPS can choose to do if it's not turning a profit. They also have to go to every address. You know, UPS and FedEx, they get to choose the neighborhoods that they serve. And if it's not profitable, then they won't go there. So a lot of ups and downs and back and forth. And by the way, all right, let me see if you break the chain. So far, I've had more than 20 of these conversations today. No one's gotten the question right. How much is a stamp?
Oh, let me think here.
I'm so tempted to Google it. I think 41 cents.
Off the top of my head, I want to say it's over 70, but I don't think it's 80. It's somewhere in the 70-cent range, I believe, but I'm not sure.
73 cents.
Close.
Bill, you were right. I just buy those forever stamps. I buy a whole bunch of them. But yeah. Wow.
Well, they're going to charge 73 cents now for a forever stamp. And yeah, that's you go into FedEx and UPS and put 73 cents on the counter. What are you going to get for it?
They'll laugh at you.
So, you know, if you want to charge you $11 for that same service, well, then okay. But 73 cents is a pretty good deal to go anywhere in the U.S. in a week.
That's true. We're talking with Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent, on the potential that these postals, the USPS could be shut down by DOJ or changed. Now, that would take an act of Congress, I understand, right?
Yeah, you're not going to shut it down, obviously, but how much can it be privatized? You know, the real issue is if you do privatize it, then do companies like FedEx and UPS get the low-hanging, profitable fruit? And now you're left with the post office going to that rural post office box in Wyoming to deliver mail, you know, with one guy living in a ranch that's 22,000 acres. Or do they, you know, because FedEx now is the contract for Manhattan, and it's so dense that it's much more profitable for them to work there.
Now, Rory O'Neill, how much does junk mail pay into the revenue that the post office gets?
Yeah, I don't have a specific breakdown. Well, because some people will say that's not junk.
Right,
but yeah,
marketing.
The credit card offers that sort of half newspaper coupon-y thing. All the political announcements that come, you know, at that time of year. But what we're also seeing less of, we're getting fewer Christmas cards. Fewer of us, you know, buy stamps to put our tax return in the mail. You know, there are a lot of ways that our use of the Postal Service has certainly changed significantly over the past 10 or 15 years.
Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent. Thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show. Give us an update on the Postal Service, maybe possibly feeling some cuts coming up.
Thanks, guys.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Marie in Denver. Good morning, Marie. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Thank you. I'm calling about posting the King James Version of the Bible in schools as a matter of law, and I don't think it's appropriate. First of all, Catholics have a slightly different kind of Bible from the King James, and every religion has some kind of founding document, and if they were all posted on the wall, but if you only have one version, you're going to have kids asking questions, and then that places the teacher in an awkward position.
Well, I think they're talking about posting the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, and that's the King James Version. Catholics have
why is it the King? I don't think it's the King James Version. I think it's going to be some version.
Well, unless they're Aramaic,
are there different versions of the Ten Commandments?
Yeah. The King James Version.
What's the problem with
the King James Version is basically the accepted version of the Bible.
Like the thous.
Yeah, it's if you pick up a Bible in today's age, you walk into a Christian bookstore, etc., pick up a Bible, you're going to be buying the King James Version unless you specifically seek out one that is different.
No.
Yeah, most of them are, yeah.
No.
But that,
okay, then
you
what
have
is
the
it?
NIV. You probably have 60 different versions of the Bible. But go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing is when you talk about the early education and the Bible being part of that, you also have to acknowledge that slavery was appropriate during that time, and slaves were illiterate. And not only that, they certainly weren't in school in the South. And in many states, there was a death penalty if you taught a slave to be literate. Now, I don't know that
So
ever happened.
I'm sorry, what does that have to do with the Ten Commandments on the wall?
Because the person discussing it said it goes back to the early days of the...
Right, it's foundational to the shaping of this country. Right. So are you equating, sorry, Marie, are you equating the Ten Commandments with slavery?
When you talk about what is being taught in schools...
Yes.
And certainly in the Old Testament you had slavery. I'm talking about our Constitution, because if you're calling into the history of this country, then you do have... And justifying the Bible in schools because of its history in this country, then I do think you also have to address slavery.
Well, I think they teach slavery in the schools, don't they?
I don't know.
Yeah, they do. Believe me, especially after DEI and BLM, they're definitely going to teach slavery in the schools.
I wonder how that might impact it, and who's going to interpret the Bible to students, because they'll have questions.
Well, don't kids have questions on everything?
Yeah, but not. But if you're asking a Catholic kid about what's a graven image to somebody who is a fundamental Protestant teaching, you might get that's where the conflict begins, or could begin. And I just think it's not necessary. I think you can.
You don't think the Ten Commandments are necessary to teach kids?
Absolutely. I think that every religion has its way of teaching children about their religion. I think that all the founding documents, if they were all presented, would be good.
Okay, all right. But founding documents good?
I will tell you that.
Not the Ten Commandments? Go ahead,
Can
Marie.
Can I tell you one thing?
Please.
I'm very old, and I'm an Army brat. And I was in school in Missouri in the early 50s when Protestant religion was part of what was taught in public schools in Missouri. And I came in the middle of the year because brats get moved around all the time. And the teacher said, it's time to pray. And I stood up and crossed myself. And she came charging across the room and told me not to do that in her room. And if I ever did it again, she'd beat me. And she beat all the kids all the time. Also, in those days, and it's not true now, and I'm certainly not defending any religion, I don't mean to do that, but she told me that I had to use the right Our Father, and she stood by me to make sure I did. And I thought I was a martyr, and I went home and told my mother, and she said, Catholic mother, offer it up. We're not going to make an issue of it. But it really scared me. And that, I don't know whether that could begin to happen now, and nor do you.
Well, I would be against anyone beating another person. But, Marie, thanks for the call. I appreciate that. We're talking whether or not the Ten Commandments should be posted in the classroom. New law coming out of Texas saying, yep, we're going to mandate it. What do you think? Phone lines open 303-696-1971. We're also talking the post office getting shut down, plus the text message scandal coming from the Atlantic. We've been covering all of this morning. We'll continue. Kent, you're up next. By the way, the phone line, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Lots of things to cover today. It seems like the hot issue right now, and we just had folks on from First Liberty, Texas is going to require the Ten Commandments up on the walls. Me pointing out, we allow teachers to put pride flags up on the walls here in Colorado. That's a religious worldview. It's a set of morals and beliefs towards an intimate goal or end goal with truth assumptions all baked into it that they feel perfectly fine promoting to kids. But you put the Ten Commandments up there, that's the violation of separation of church and state. Let's go to the phone lines. Kenton, Denver. Good morning, Kenton. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Hey, I'm well, but I began to think I was going to have to bring a picnic lunch. I've been on hold for like 15, 20 minutes, but I'm glad to talk to you guys. I'm glad the Ten Commandments are in there. And I want to say it does not endorse a doctrine. I mean, the Catholic or the Protestant faith. The Ten Commandments do not endorse a specific doctrine. Now, I'm a born-again Christian, and I'm a member of the Episcopal Church, and our church was the first one to break free from Catholicism. We're known in England as the Church of England. Then we can come across. But what I want to really say is that I think Donald Trump is the first really great president we've had since Eisenhower. And Eisenhower is the president that made it when we said a pledge of allegiance. He's the one that added that clause under God. And I didn't know that at that time when I was going to grade school and high school. And the reason why he added that under God, he said we need that humbleness. We need to know, we as a human race, Russia, Cuba, China, wherever we're from, America, we need to know that there's someone greater than us. And so I'm very much in favor of that. And so I'm getting a little emotional here. But yeah, I'm really in favor of it. But that Ten Commandments does not endorse a doctrine. It comes from the Christian faith. It comes from, but it doesn't. And that Bible you're talking about, that Catholic Bible you're talking about, it's called the Holy Bible of Jerusalem. And I don't know how many translations there are. I stick to the King James. And there's Revised, there's Standard of God, there's a jillion different ones. When you go into the Christian Bible bookstore, God only knows how many. I've even got one, a Bible that's called the New World Order. And I've heard of the New World Order, but I didn't know they had a Bible. I've got a copy of that Bible. And so, yeah, I'm very much in favor of it. And we need to know that there's somebody greater than us.
Kent, I agree with you on that. That's led to America's success. What I've seen come, and this stems from the 60s, and it's a failed level of thinking, that there is somehow a neutral square that exists where education can take place without some sort of worldview. There is a worldview in every level of education. And right now, the progressive left in Colorado is very happy to push their worldview of oppressor versus oppressed, LGBTQ+, all that stuff through their schools, not claim it's somehow not a religion, and then feel like that's got to end up, part of our education system. I think it's important to challenge that ideology. And Texas is going to produce better students than Colorado's going to with the Ten Commandments on the wall. Kent, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. 303-696-1971. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, some bad news for those of us that appreciate the Constitution, particularly the Second Amendment. Senate Bill 3 passing out of the House of Representatives yesterday, now heading to the governor's desk. We're going to talk with Larry Don Suckla, a state representative who has a powerful speech he gave on the floor of the House yesterday. He's going to be joining us in the 8 o'clock hour. We're going to try to grab Scott Bottoms as well. So a whole lot to talk about. Look, the phone lines are open. You want to talk Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz and the Atlantic article about text messages and Signal. That's open. You want to talk Ten Commandments? We can talk that as well. Also, the post office possibly being cut back. All of that on the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Man, we are having fun this morning. 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. Pick the issue. We're debating it all today. I'm like fired up, man. I feel like I'm in the middle of a boxing match. We got it all going on. Everything from the text message signal issue with the Atlantic editor and Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz and J.D. Vance, all those folks, to the 10 Commandments being put on the walls down in Texas, to the U.S. Postal Service being possibly scaled back by DOJ. You're all invited to be part of the conversation. Come on, let's mix it all up. 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. And just to add some fuel to the fire, how about gun rights now and the Second Amendment? Bad news for those of us that care about freedom. Senate Bill 003, the stupid bill that's going to require you to literally stand on your head and juggle in order to get the right to own a gun. They want to make you go through all of these processes now in the state of Colorado. Do so. Now moving to the governor's desk, we're going to talk with State Rep Larry Don Suckla, who gave a great speech yesterday on the floor of the House. We'll get to him in just a second. Let's add a little spice to an already spicy morning. Now is time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
45 and sunny in Denver. Good morning. Tuesday morning. Expecting a high of 70 today in Denver. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the White House says it's looking into how the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic was accidentally included in a group chat discussing plans for airstrikes on Houthis in Yemen. The National Security Council says it's investigating how a number was inadvertently added to the group, which also appeared to include Vice President Vance, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Pete Buttigieg is appalled.
The U.S. Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, the Vice President of the United States, and other very senior, very powerful Trump White House officials, it turns out, discussed highly classified war plans, not only on an unclassified channel, but accidentally and randomly, it seems, including a journalist. And to see this administration claiming that it cares about competence and merit be responsible for an epic up like this demonstrates that these are not serious people.
Oh, that's true. They got to be serious like you. I understand. You are so serious, Petey.
Racist roads, dude. So serious.
That's right. Hey, now I saw a photo of him one time. Didn't he have like a fake breast on? He was like breastfeeding.
No, I looked that up, and that is not a real picture.
That's not. That's fake.
I totally thought it was too. I was like, I saw that everywhere. Nope. No. That was photoshopped.
I bet he thinks men can become women, though.
Yes,
I bet he does. I bet he does.
That men can give birth.
Yes, men can give birth. I'm sorry. That's what I was looking for. I'm so confused now. It's now up to an appeals court to determine whether the Trump administration can continue deporting illegal immigrants under the Alien Enemies Act. The White House has maintained it can use the wartime law to deport Venezuelan gang members. A 3-judge panel heard arguments from the Department of Justice Monday and will issue a ruling at some point. Well, good for them. Thank you very much. U.S. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy has resigned, and Rory O'Neill, NBC News Radio, on with Jeff and Billy last hour, defending the Postal Service. He reminded us that stamps are 73 cents. I missed that one when he asked. I did not know. I forgot. Not a bad deal. Makes a case for the USPS.
You go into FedEx and UPS and put 73 cents on the counter. What are you going to get for it?
They'll laugh at you.
So, private, if you want to charge you $11 for that same service, well, then okay. But 73 cents is a pretty good deal to go anywhere in the U.S. in a week.
I hear not a bad argument. With genetic testing company 23andMe filing for bankruptcy, privacy experts are warning the DNA of millions of people is up for sale. The company, known for its saliva-based test kits that offer customers a look into their genetic ancestry, says that there's no need to panic about the security of personal data, but there's no guarantee. America is back. The Department of Education is being shut down, and patriots like Matt Krause from First Liberty Institute, the First Liberty Institute, helping put the Ten Commandments back on the walls of Texas schools starting next year.
When they say you're trying to establish your religion or you're trying to force your religion, I always go back, well, which religion are you talking about? Is it the Jewish religion? Because that's who the Ten Commandments were given to first in the Old Testament. Are we trying to establish that religion? Is it the Christian religion? Well, if it's the Christian religion, is it the Catholic part of Christianity? Is it the Protestant part of Christianity? Is it the Baptist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist part of Protestantism, if that's where you think it is? So I think when people say you're trying to force your religion on somebody, the Ten Commandments are so ubiquitous and been used for so long in so many ways. Even Islam, I think, shares about 80% of the Ten Commandments.
Krause was on with the fellas last hour, and the data shows once the Ten Commandments were taken down, schools started to fall apart in the U.S. Jon Decker also on with Jeff and Billy this morning. He was at the cabinet meeting on Monday, the press session. Jeff asked him if there's division over Greenland becoming part of the United States.
No, there's not. There was an election that took place just a few weeks ago in Greenland, and the citizens of Greenland overwhelmingly have indicated that they do not wish to be a part of the United States of America. The Prime Minister of Greenland has said no interest in being a territory of the United States.
Residents in Longmont and Boulder County very familiar with the sugar mill property southwest of Fox Hill and Longmont. Firefighters continue to work on a fire there that started early this morning in a two-story building on the property. There may be some delays in the area. Use caution if you're heading from the diagonal to and from Boulder. Speaking of Boulder, Bulls, Chicago, over the Nuggets, 129-119. Avalanche play host to the Red Wings tonight. CSU head coach Niko Medved, basketball head coach, now the new head coach of the Minnesota Gophers. He's from there. 40 in Highlands Ranch, 42 in Broomfield, 45 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Springtime in the Rockies. Beautiful weather over the next 3 days, maybe the next 4. Temperatures in the mid to upper 60s and sunny today. Sunny with low to mid 70s Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Overnight lows will be 30s and 40s. There might be a slight chance of an afternoon shower, isolated thunderstorm Thursday. A better chance of late day showers Friday. Do be ready for colder temperatures and increasing chances of showers of rain and snow this weekend. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, we've got a lot to talk about this hour. Senate Bill 3 passing the House of Representatives last night. Here's Larry Suckla on the floor of the House yesterday.
Lighting a match to the fabric of this state. You're driving a wedge so deep that I don't know if Colorado will ever recover, and that is not a threat, it is a reality, because the people in HD 58 and across Colorado, they will not comply. They will not be disarmed, and they will not be ruled. You see, you're not just passing a bill, you're picking a fight. You are forcing law-abiding citizens to choose between obedience and freedom. And I can promise you this, they will choose freedom every single time. You are creating criminals out of veterans, out of active duty military, out of teenage boys who have never broken a law, out of mothers who carry to protect their children, or our grandfathers who passed down a rifle as part of a family legacy. These are the most law-abiding citizens we have, and you are treating them like criminals for refusing to give up their rights. That is tyranny, plain and simple, and when government makes it a crime to be a patriot, then the government is the one breaking the law.
That's Larry Don Suckla on the floor of the House yesterday in light of the passing of Senate Bill 3, which is going to place a lot of restrictions on Coloradans' ability to buy firearms. Joining us now is that state representative, Larry Don Suckla. Good morning, Representative. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff and Bill. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it was a rough day yesterday for patriot, constitutional, and free-loving Coloradans. Give some folks some insight on what this bill, Senate Bill 3, does and as it heads to the governor's desk.
Well, I tell you what they do is they just use lie after lie after lie. One of the comments made by one of the bill sponsors was that 15% of the population of the United States has seen or been part of or in a mass shooting. There's 330 million people. At 10%, that's 33 million. Add another 5%, you're at 40 million. They're trying to say that 40 million people have seen or been part of a mass shooting. And I could just go on and on and on. They're not telling the truth. They're stripping away our rights. And over on the Western Slope, we're not going to stand for it.
And tell folks what this law is going to require Coloradans to do.
It's a gun registry. They want you to register your guns. They want to have you do a 12-hour class. They're going to put a fee on there that's going to make it to where it punishes the people that of low income. And I mean, they're just started. They're starting with they're calling it the Armory Bill, where I don't know how many guns if you have over 10 or 20, they haven't came up with the number yet. If you got any more than that, you can't have any more. They're going to tell you how many guns you can have. That's the next bill I'm hearing coming down the road. And we are just sick and tired of it where I live. We are sick and tired. What they do over here is they rule. They don't serve. They are rulers. They forgot that they are servants of the people, that the people are their boss.
We're talking with Representative Larry Don Suckla. He represents the southwestern part of Colorado. Colorado's best kept secret in my book. That's Cortez, Colorado. Beautiful city down there. Now, Representative, this is heading to the governor's desk. Before I ask you about the governor, were there any Democrats that voted against this bill in the House yesterday?
Yes, there was.
And what was their reason? Did you get a chance to talk to them and explore their reasoning why?
Well, Marshall got up there and explained why he did, which I thought that took a lot of guts. The others, I believe it's all about getting reelected. Or maybe, I guess I can't say that. For their own reasons, they voted against it. We needed 4 more. We didn't get them. And it's just a shame because I just see a deterioration of our rights. And we are just sick to our stomach over this. It's just nonstop.
Well, and a bill like this had been introduced in the past, passed this year, unlike last year, previous years. What do you think was the difference that got this through the legislature?
Fear. They're teaching a whole generation that they should be afraid. That was one of the talking points. Well, when my kids go to school, they're afraid because we have to do the gun drills if there's to simulate a mass shooting. Well, they're the ones putting the fear in them. The people that are doing the drills and the things they are saying, they are putting in the minds that a gun is something that's really bad instead of it being a tool. Where I live, it's a tool. We teach our kids it's a tool. We teach them responsibility on how to use the gun, and that it is something that takes a woman and makes her an equalizer to a man.
There's that old saying that God didn't make men and women equal. Samuel Colt did. We're talking with Larry Don Suckla. He's a representative from Colorado, southwestern part of Colorado, on Senate Bill 3, which passed the House yesterday. Did you hear from folks about this bill? I know RMGO was out there pushing pretty hard. Did you get emails? Did you get phone calls? What did your constituents tell you about this bill?
So I received thousands of emails. I received hundreds of phone calls, and it was all the same message. Please stop this bill. Please vote against this bill. And so I'm one of 65, so I'm sure the other 64 received the same things that I did, the same information that I did.
A lot of people organizing around this. Now it heads to the governor's desk. Have you heard from Governor Polis? Is he likely to sign Senate Bill 3?
I don't know. I have no idea. You hear rumors of what he's going to do, but I have not personally talked to the governor, so I have no idea until it lands on his desk. It goes to the Senate next. They got a little more work to do on it there after all of the amendments, 30-some amendments that was put on it, which tells you that they started off with something really bad. Anyway, I'm against the whole bill, amendment or not. It's wrong. It's against our Second Amendment, and all it does, guns are a way of life where I live. I mean, like I tell them, you can't get in one of our pickups on our farm or ranch and there isn't a bullet rolling around on the floor. It's just a way of life. All of our side-by-sides, we have prairie dogs. We have things that we have to keep under control. And they're a part of our lives where I live. I can understand if they're so concerned about them, then we've already told them that just do them for your districts. Take our districts out of this, but that's not the way it works here. What's good for them, they think is good for us, and it's not. And maybe what's good for us isn't good for them.
Now, Larry Don Suckla, I was down at the Bernie Sanders rally, and look, there's plenty of debates as to whether or not everybody there was a real Colorado voter, or if it was AstroTurf, that type of thing. But Representative, I saw tens of thousands of people that aren't just Democrats, but progressives, socialists, embracing the Bernie Sanders AOC worldview, which says we don't need these guns. And I think that reflects a good portion of the Colorado electorate. That's changed. And look, I grew up here in Colorado. This is not the same Colorado I grew up in. It's become far more progressive. What's your response to those that would say lawmakers are just doing what the voters are asking them to do? Get rid of these guns. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is they ban drugs, and you can go down there to Broadway. You can go down. I live 2 blocks from the Capitol. And I bet you in a week's time, I could see 3 people doing drugs, usually from 5 to 10 o'clock at night. It's everywhere. You see people with their heads down, and if they're standing up, they go in a circle. If they're sitting down, they just got their heads slooped over. If that isn't a telling sign. So they banned drugs, and here we are, more drugs than I've ever seen. That's something about the air in this city that makes people do things that there's no common sense here. Everybody's a victim. And I guess they have good intentions, but their decisions are destroying independence and freedom.
Larry Don Suckla, he represents the southwestern part of Colorado. Now, look, I feel like folks that are pro-Second Amendment are going through what a lot of us social conservatives have gone through for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, where, look, we're just in a progressive state. We're going to lose. This is going to require a court battle, and eventually it'll come our way. But have you talked to other Republicans that are looking at this and going, all right, we've got to buckle down. It's going to be won in court because this is a constitutional right. What are the next steps for protecting this right in light of this leftist progressive administration here in Colorado?
My advice is that we fight every step of the way. We fight. We fight in the Senate. We fight in the House. We fight out in our districts, and then we fight in court. But we don't leave one stone unturned to overturn this, because if this goes through, first of all, the financial note on it is going to be unbelievable. One, and number two, they talked about using it to the Division of Wildlife. There's 131 districts, meaning that we got 131 law officers, and there's no way that you're going to be able to take this 12-hour class out in rural Colorado. We just don't have enough instructors. You're going to take the Division of Wildlife officers out of the forests and out of the deserts. It won't work. It's the design of this bill has so many holes in it that it's unbelievable. And we're going to find out for sure as soon as if this does get passed, just how bad it really is. And hopefully the people have had enough. Hopefully that the people are starting to see the light, and they realize that, hey, maybe the direction of being progressive is not what's in my best interest. Maybe it's not what's in the best interest of my kids.
Now, Larry Don Suckla, Colorado representative, joining Jeff and Bill live. Earlier in the conversation, you talked about how the Democrats and the liberals don't understand the firearms and how they're used out on the ranch like you do. When you're taking care of the prairie dogs and you're cutting down a wolf population and stuff, what are the firearms you're using? What are your go-tos? Are they 22s? Are we looking at, what do you use?
No, we use what they call a 17 Fireball or a 20 Swift. We need to be able to shoot a prairie dog. They have sensory. The prairie dogs talk to each other. You can use a 17, which is a rim fire, and you're going to get the ones that are 100 yards out. But if you're going to keep the population down so it doesn't run your hay crop, you got to be able to pick one off at 350 yards. And you have to use a center fire, guns that we have built that'll shoot over 4,000 feet a second, that have precision scopes on them, and you got to be able to take a prairie dog out at 300 yards.
Yeah, you do. And I understand, and prairie dogs are awful as far as farming. They're awful for horses, they're awful for cattle, and they destroy crops. I absolutely agree with you, and this is where I'm going with this, is I believe sometimes that both sides don't want to talk about what the real issue is. Like right here, if the Democrats brought in a no extended mag, no assault rifle bill, I believe many of the arguments would be the same thing, but I don't believe Representative Larry Don Suckla that on your farm, when you're controlling animal populations, you're using an assault rifle or using a model that has an extended mag. And so those might be, in some conversations, reasonable restrictions to access to weapons that seem to be used in instances in which large numbers, or at least groups of people in America, are dying. The idea that is the chosen weapon for a mass shooting. And it's not the chosen weapon of a rancher, from my understanding, that there have been reasonable restrictions on our access to firearms, and they still exist. We can't go by the same stuff that the military can. So do you believe that there is a way that we can get to something about a reasonable restriction?
Every rancher that I know has an AR-15. They are sitting in their safe. They've probably shot it 3 to 5 times, and they are solely for protection of their family. They don't shoot the prairie dog with them.
Yeah.
They are there as a backup in case something goes wrong to protect their family.
Yeah, and that was my point, that when you brought up the idea of we use these firearms to call animal populations, it is not the assault weapon, the thing that we talk about as far as an AR-15 or those designed like that are used to control the animal populations. That is not the gun that farmers and ranchers keep in their pickup truck. That's not what's going to be on the gun rack behind them 9 times out of 10. That was exactly my point. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I agree with you on
yes,
that.
but this law will ban my 20 Swift or my buddy's 17 Fireball.
Yeah, and I think that's crap. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's wrong. Yeah, and I just was using this part of the conversation to outline how coming to a reasonable conclusion, a reasonable position on both sides is nearly untenable. I don't believe the Democrats are going to give an inch, and I don't believe Second Amendment supporters are going to give an inch. And this is why this conversation goes around and around this way, because the people that sit in different positions see this conversation, in my opinion, hear the conversation, and feel the two sides don't really want to find a solution.
Well, Larry Don Suckla, you can follow him on X at L Suckla, LSUCLA. Follow him there and watch his speech yesterday on the floor of the House of Representatives here in Colorado. It is Churchillian in the sense that he is calling those of us to defend our Second Amendment rights and to fight every inch to do so. Our children's future and our grandchildren's future are at stake. So get involved politically, and let's get out there, and we can still stop this. Now the message goes to Governor Jared Polis. Larry Don Suckla, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Keep up the great work, sir. Scott Bottoms coming up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking Senate Bill 3. It passed yesterday, and we're going to have Scott Bottoms up here in just a second. Excited to hear from him. I'm going to play Don Suckla again real quick. This was him on the floor of the House yesterday. Powerful speech.
If you pass this bill, you're lighting a match to the fabric of this state. You're driving a wedge so deep that I don't know if Colorado will ever recover. And that is not a threat, it is a reality. Because the people in HD 58 and across Colorado, they will not comply. They will not be disarmed, and they will not be ruled. You see, you're not just passing a bill, you're picking a fight. You are forcing law-abiding citizens to choose between obedience and freedom. And I can promise you this, they will choose freedom every single time. You are creating criminals out of veterans, out of active duty military, out of teenage boys who have never broken a law, out of mothers who carry to protect their children, or our grandfathers who passed down a rifle as part of a family legacy. These are the most law-abiding citizens we have, and you are treating them like criminals for refusing to give up their rights. That is tyranny, plain and simple, and when government makes it a crime to be a patriot, then the government is the one breaking the law.
It was a wild day down at the Colorado State Capitol as Republicans went to the mat in order to defend Second Amendment rights, and Democrats just bulldozed right through it. They had the numbers. They got it passed. Now joining us, Representative Scott Bottoms. Representative, give us some insight into what yesterday was like.
Yeah, first, thanks for having me. It was pretty crazy. It's the same old thing. They say this is for safety. They say that they're trying to protect people. But when you use a few examples to say, okay, this is safety for people, and you ignore the 3 million people's lives that were saved this last year from somebody having a firearm, it's not about safety. This is about taking guns away from people, making it illegal to have guns. This is about using money. In fact, they're using Parks and Wildlife money because they're also trying to bankrupt Parks and Wildlife. So, yeah, we fought it all day yesterday. I was proud of our Republican caucus, but we knew at the end of the day they were still going to take our money. They were still going to use this against us, take our Second Amendment rights, and then abuse us with the bill itself. It's actually pretty disgusting what happens in this building.
Well, Representative Scott Bottoms, I want to talk to you about, do you think there's going to be any electoral consequence to this? I think you've been around Colorado long enough, like I have. In 2013, the even idea of this resulted in people being recalled, challenged, and I miss that style of Colorado. But look, I was down at the Bernie rally on Friday, and whether or not everybody there was real or not is debatable, but could have been astroturfed. But I'm seeing a Colorado that's so far into the progressive camp that they're cheering on the lawmakers down there going, yeah, take away all the guns. We want to become a socialist utopian. And, I mean, do you think from your perspective there can be any electoral consequence at this point?
Yeah, there's going to be huge electoral consequences, and that's the most important part of this subject right now. So you guys know I'm running for governor, too. This will get me elected. These subjects that we keep bringing up, guys, I've got people doing statistical analysis of our entire state all over the place, and the people of Colorado are tired of this. Sure, you have a couple hundred people to show up at the Capitol and make their voices heard because they're not at work, but all the other people at work, they're the ones who are when the polls are finished and everything is happening, we go to the ballot, you're going to see people change. There are 5 seats right now on the Democrat side that they should have voted differently. One did, but they should have voted differently, and they didn't, and they're going to lose their seats. And when we keep doing this stuff, when we keep attacking children, attacking parents, attacking the Second Amendment, attacking constitutional rights, and making the honest, good, law-abiding people in the state of Colorado the criminals, then yeah, this is gonna sweep me right into the governor's office. I guarantee you.
We're talking with Representative Scott Bottoms. Speaking of the governor, Jared Polis wants to run for president. Rural Pennsylvania won't put up with this. You think he's actually going to sign it?
Well, that's been the big subject from the beginning. It wasn't whether the Democrats were going to pass this. We know they do not care about the rights of the people. The leftists that are in the House do not represent the Democrats in the state of Colorado. And so here's what's happening is Polis has got his back against the wall. He specifically made sure that this bill was convoluted enough that he could sign it. He can take cover in the fact that this bill is stupid. It disagrees with itself inside the bill. And we've already talked to the lawyers that are going to attack this. They know this is an easy attack. They know this is an easy turnover. This bill will be destroyed in the courts. Now, the question with Polis is whether he signs it. If he signs a all-encompassing bill like this, he'll never be president. But if he doesn't sign it, he will be attacked so much by his own party that they may not be pushing to nominate him. Gavin Newsom is ahead of him in the polls when it comes to the Democrat side. So I don't know. If he signs it, he has sealed his fate right there. And we, not just me and not just our state, but we will make sure that he is destroyed by his own signature. But who knows? This is the thing with Polis and with a lot of the leftists in the state of Colorado. We are in such a bubble here that they actually think the entire country thinks like a small handful of leftists and Marxists that are trying to control this state. They don't even have the full support of the Democrat Party in this state. And we're going to see that in 26 quite a bit.
We're talking with Representative Scott Bottoms. Representative, I spoke with a Democrat leader who kind of scoffed at the idea that Jared Polis could run for president in her mind because he was too moderate. What are you seeing down at the state capitol with regards to the direction of the Democrat Party? It seems like there's a Bernie AOC wing that is just on fire right now, and they want to have more control, and they're going to kind of push out the Michael Bennetts, John Hickenloopers. I've seen posts on X from activists going, we've got a primary John Hickenlooper now. Are we going to see a more progressive Democrat Party down at the state capitol in the years to come?
Yes, down at the state capitol, you will. Again, like I said, they do not represent the Democrats across the state. And this is where they have gotten so power hungry, and they have gotten so truly being led by destroying babies and parents' rights and all this kind of stuff that they think they're invincible. Right now in the state capitol, they are invincible. And interestingly, so we all know, everybody in the state knows Polis is as leftist as it gets. He's as Marxist as it gets. He's the one that's trying to make sure that nobody can own property and everybody has to drive electric vehicles. Well, not right now because we hate Elon Musk. But this is the leftist Marxist guy that is the governor. But here's the crazy part is that a lot of the Democrats in the House don't like him. And it's not because of whether he's moderate or leftist. It's because he's a control freak. He will send his people down to the floor of the House, which is not okay, this separation of powers. And he will send his guy down here and pull a Democrat out and have a good talking to. And when the Democrat comes back, they are all on board with the Polis direction again. He does that all the time. We've even videoed this stuff. That's why they don't like him. It's not because he's middle of the road or moderate. Now, if you are a complete leftist Marxist nut job, you actually might think that Polis could be not as Marxist as you, and that's part of what's going on too. But no, they're ramping up, and they're going to continue to push and bully. All they do is bully us around here, and that's why with Representative Suckla and his speech, we're not going to be bullied. Some of the Republicans can be bullied. They've proven that, but not all of us.
Talking with Representative Scott Bottoms. Now, speaking of being on video, this video went a little viral the other day. Representative Amy Pascal, during the debate, coloring. Literally opening an app on her iPhone or iPad and coloring and putting stickers. She's a Democrat. This was during the debate down on the floor of the State House, Senate Bill 003. During the debate, she's coloring on an app. How serious were the Democrats during this whole discussion down there?
Well, you got to give Pascal at least a little bit of a break. She was in the room. Most of them are not in the room. They just get up and leave, and we take pictures of this. There were other people that you may see pictures come out in the next few days, people playing solitaire and doing, but at least they were in the room. Most of the Democrats get up and leave. They don't care. And so we do something where we call division, and they have to all come back in, or some of them come back in, and and kind of make a public stand vote. But yeah, we deal with this constantly. This is my third session here. This is the constant. When you actually talk about the big subjects, Second Amendment rights, abortion rights, grooming children, we're gonna discuss this stuff for a long time, and the Democrats are gonna leave the room. That's who they are. They do not care about the people. They do not care about the vote. They do not care. They know they have the vote. Why sit and listen to anything? And even as we were admonished from the podium yesterday by Representative Garcia, she tried to make sure that we remembered we were the minority, so they don't have to listen to us. That's the way it is.
Now, we've got probably, another month or so. It goes till about May, the legislative session, if I remember correctly. What else could we expect to see from the progressive Democrats down there?
We had the 1st of May. We are actually this week we're voting on a couple of things that are egregious. Now they're making sure that it's codified, even though it's been constitutionalized. They're going to make sure it's codified that taxpayer money goes to abortion. That is illegal at the federal level, but because they constitutionalized it, they can push a different thing through. We also had a bill that had come through committee that hasn't come to the floor yet. Now you're gonna think I'm making this up. I am not. The context of the bill was during the first trimester of a baby is when sex is assigned to the baby. During the second trimester is when the baby decides its gender. That's literally what the bill is, and they're going to try to shove that down our throats too. These people are truly, some of them are so crazy. They are struggling with such deep mental health issues that there's nothing you can do to convince them or change them or whatever. They are living in a crazy Marxist world.
What is what's the point of the bill to identify that a child chooses its gender during the second trimester? What are they trying to do? Just put that into law?
They're trying to put that into law, but then also making sure that we're using all the right language. Remember, Marxism has to control your language. This is, read 1984. I mean, this is the big issue, is they have to control everything that we say and do. So therefore, you cannot call a baby a baby. You have to call it some kind of weird thing. They're even trying to change the name right now for mothers. They're trying to call them inseminated persons, because they're trying to control every single step of our world, including mostly language. You know this. When you can control the language, go back to Russia in the 60s and 70s. When you can control the language, you control the people. And this is part of what they're trying to do. And they've been doing it from the beginning. I've been gavelled down many times because I have misgendered somebody or dead named somebody. And I told them, I don't play by your rules. There is no such thing as dead naming. That is some kind of crazy mental health issue that you're trying to force upon us.
Now, Representative Scott Bottoms, the big decision coming up from the Republican Party this weekend. Have you endorsed anybody for state GOP chairman?
No, I don't endorse. That's just a policy that I have, and this comes back to me being a pastor of a church. The only thing that I don't do is endorse people because of the church's 501c3 status, which I don't think it's in jeopardy if I did endorse. I just don't want that to be something that they try to hurt my church over. I'm still very protective of my church and these kind of things. So yeah, I have somebody I'm going to vote for. But here's the reality of this. Whoever gets elected, I'm going to work with. I understand there's a lot of fight in the GOP, and everybody's at everybody's throat right now. I don't like that. I don't agree with it. I do have somebody I'm going to vote for, but whoever gets elected, I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to work to build the GOP in the state of Colorado.
Scott Bottoms, representative, also candidate for governor. Thanks so much for taking time to join us. How can people follow you on X?
ScottBottoms.com is my website, and then on X, it's Representative.
Rep Scott Bottoms. I found it.
Rep Scott Bottoms.
Yep.
I was having to ask my people.
It's one of those newfangled technology things. Rep Scott Bottoms. Follow him on X. One of the good folks down there fighting for your Second Amendment rights. Thanks for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, we'll continue. We've got a lot to discuss, a lot to debate. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Senate Bill 3 passing down at the House, but passing with 30 amendments. It's now got to go to the Senate. This is not a good bill. Anytime you want to purchase a, quote, high-powered firearm with a detachable magazine, you now have to go through a permitting process, a gun registry, firearm safety, and you have to pay. So it's basically, as Larry Don Lucas said, now a poll tax. If you want to exercise your Second Amendment, you got to pay the government a lot of money in order to do it. I don't think this thing stands a chance being challenged in the courts. But the big question, Jared Polis wants to be president of the United States. Do you think he signs this bill? Bill Thorpe, I'll throw it to you. Do you think Jared Polis signs Senate Bill 3?
No, I don't think he does, because he wants to run for president, and I think this is too broad. And that's been my critique with the Democrats, is that they bring bills that are way too broad and they overreach rather than being very, very targeted, pun intended, that if they would push the GOP and the Second Amendment supporters to support some more narrow legislation, they would have a better case. But as Representative Suckla outlined, with some of the weapons that he uses to control the animal population on his farm and ranch, that's a step too far. That's something that is going to make someone like Polis think twice, because it will be those firearms that will be outlined in any sort of a campaign when he makes an announcement for president. It won't be Jared Polis signs this so that we don't have any more AR-15s that are available for X, Y, and Z. It's going to be Jared Polis signs these guns that the ranchers can't use these firearms to control prairie dogs. Why are we scared of prairie dogs? And it is a fair critique. So no, I don't think he signs it.
Would love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. This bill requiring, if you're going to purchase a, quote, high-powered firearm with a detachable magazine, okay, you've now got to go through a permitting process, a gun registry, firearm training, and you have to pay a very big fee in order to do it. Do you agree with the Democrats doing this? Or is this a threat to your Second Amendment rights and you're frustrated by it? 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. I want to talk to you about my friends at the Black Eyed Pea of Colorado, locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. I love this restaurant. In fact, I'm going to be meeting a friend Wednesday there. It's my go-to place for when people want to connect. We go to the Black Eyed Pea. It's home-style cooking, worth going out for. With 8 locations, there's sure to be one near you. It's all along the I-25 corridor, out in Lakewood, Inglewood as well. When's the last time you took the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? Everything's made from scratch. Roasted turkey breast dinner, mom's meatloaf, grilled salmon. How about homemade soup, great salads, delicious mashed potatoes? They've got daily specials. They've got senior discounts. And every once in a while, they let me order from the senior menu because I don't eat big portions. But better save room, and my kids love it. The dessert they have there and the mile-high 1-pound chocolate cake. It's so delicious. It's incredible. Make your dinner party, rehearsal dinner, wedding reception, or company event a success with Black Eyed Pea Catering. And no matter what the occasion, Black Eyed Pea gift cards are always great. Whether you purchase them for your spouse, birthday favors, or holiday presents, they have you covered. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will as well. Be sure to keep it in Colorado and visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. So much to talk about, including this text message scandal. You know who's very happy this broke? Mayor Mike Johnston. If you remember last week, he was getting reamed for having conversations via Signal. Do you hold Trump's administration to the same account? We'll get into this and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Man, that sounds like the phone lines this morning. 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Let's get to Blake Olson with the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Denver expecting a high of 70 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, Senate Bill 3, passed the House Monday at the state capitol and now heads to the Senate and the governor's desk after that. It's another attack on the Second Amendment, and Representative Larry Don Suckla from southwestern Colorado has fought hard against it on the show with Jeff and Billy last hour.
And I mean, they're just started. They're starting with they're calling it the Armory Bill, where I don't know how many guns if you have over 10 or 20, they haven't came up with the number yet. If you got any more than that, you can't have any more. They're going to tell you how many guns you can have. That's the next bill I'm hearing coming down the road. And we are just sick and tired of it where I live. We are sick and tired. What they do over here is they rule. They don't serve. They are rulers. They forgot that they are servants of the people, that the people are their boss.
Amen to that. DJT says an incident that saw a reporter added to a group chat that discussed plans to strike Houthi targets was the only glitch in 2 months. I love it. In an interview with NBC News, Trump said National Security Advisor Mike Waltz has learned a lesson. Atlantic editor Jeffery Goldberg said that he was included on a text chain on the encrypted messaging app Signal. Now we know all about Signal. That also appeared to include Vice President Vance and others. DJT says he may give certain countries exemptions for tariffs when his administration imposes them next week. He suggested that he would impose reciprocal tariffs beginning April 2nd on any nation with duties on U.S. goods. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
And that's American Liberation Day. That's the day when the rest of the world starts to treat America with respect. And your leadership, understanding how the rest of the world treats us and what balance and what fair trade finally is going to be, is going to take care of America. It's going to launch the External Revenue Service to start to build the power and prestige of America back. And I'm honored to be helping you on that course.
Postmaster General Louis DeJoy has resigned as head of the U.S. Postal Service. Rory O'Neill from NBC News on the show this morning and makes an argument for the Postal Service. It starts with the cost of a stamp, 73 cents.
You go into FedEx and UPS and put 73 cents on the counter. What are you going to get for it?
They'll laugh at you.
So, if you want to charge you $11 for that same service, well, then okay. But 73 cents is a pretty good deal to go anywhere in the U.S. in a week.
Denmark's prime minister is pushing back on the Second Lady Usha Vance's visit to Greenland. Mette Frederiksen says that the Trump administration is putting unacceptable pressure on the Danish territory. DJT has said many times that he would like Greenland to be a part of the U.S. NBC News White House correspondent Jon Decker on the show this morning. He was in the cabinet meeting on Monday as they talked about Greenland. So is Greenland divided?
No, there's not. There was an election that took place just a few weeks ago in Greenland, and the citizens of Greenland overwhelmingly have indicated that they do not wish to be a part of the United States of America. The Prime Minister of Greenland has said no interest in being a territory of the United States.
America is back, though, and the Department of Education is being shut down. And then there are patriots like Matt Krause from First Liberty Institute helping put the Ten Commandments back on the walls of Texas schools starting next year. He was on with Jeff and Billy this morning.
When they say you're trying to establish your religion or you're trying to force your religion, I always go back, well, which religion are you talking about? Is it the Jewish religion? Because that's who the Ten Commandments were given to first in the Old Testament. Are we trying to establish that religion? Is it the Christian religion? Well, if it's the Christian religion, is it the Catholic part of Christianity? Is it the Protestant part of Christianity? Is it the Baptist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist part of Protestantism, if that's where you think it is?
And he says that 80% of the Muslim religion uses the Ten Commandments. And I would agree. Almost everything in secular society comes from the Ten Commandments. The data shows once the Ten Commandments were taken down from schools, they started to fall apart in the United States. Bulls over the Nuggets, 129-119. The Avalanche play host to the Red Wings tonight. CSU head basketball coach Nico Medved headed home to Minnesota. He'll now be the new head coach of the Gophers at the University of Minnesota. 51 in Centennial, 50 in Arvada, 53 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
And I love Colin, and I think towards the end,
I took
he
the
started
wrong
to punch
one, but listen here. You can listen to 10 seconds of this.
a little harder. But, like, it's Ted Cruz. I mean, like, this dude has to be knocked over the head, like, hard, right?
Oh, yeah, Jasmine Crockett. Gotta love her. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Springtime in the Rockies. Beautiful weather over the next 3 days, maybe the next 4. Temperatures in the mid to upper 60s and sunny today. Sunny with low to mid 70s Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Overnight lows will be 30s and 40s. There might be a slight chance of an afternoon shower, isolated thunderstorm Thursday. A better chance of late day showers Friday. Do be ready for colder temperatures and increasing chances of showers of rain and snow this weekend. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Now before Congress, the Intel chiefs, and we're going to bring it to you live here. We've been able to work this out. Bill, this is Kash Patel.
Are you getting good feedback from social media technology companies and cooperation from them on illegal activities that are promoted on their site? All the different sites have rules and standards for what can and can't be done on that. But for instance, in the border areas, many of the sites are allowing child trafficking, or they're allowing basically the hiring of Americans to come be drivers and such, and they know this is being circumvented. Are they working with you on that to be able to take illegal content off their sites?
Thank you, Senator. And we have engaged directly at the top levels of all the private sector software communities and social media companies, and they have been very helpful because they have been told that this is a priority for me at the FBI to work with them because they have so much information to share back with us. Now, that's, of course, just on the public systems. We're not talking about the darknet.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Heinrich. Thank you, Chairman. Director Ratcliffe, I want to start with you. Who determined that the content of this discussion on Signal was not classified?
Senator, I guess I'm not.
Well, for example,
I can speak to my personal knowledge. There was no classified
agent mentioned as part of this story. Normally, that would be classified information. So I guess what I'm asking is, did you just determine it was not classified, or was there any declassification after the fact?
So to be clear, so everyone understands the process, as we talked about, Signal is a permissible use.
I understand
has been used
that.
at the CIA, has been approved by the White House for senior officials.
And appropriate for many conversations.
And recommended by CISA for high-level officials who would be targeted by foreign adversaries to use end-to-end encrypted apps whenever possible, like Signal. In this case, what the National Security Advisor did was to request through a Signal message that there be coordination. So you mentioned the name of a CIA active officer, correct? So
I didn't mention the name.
You didn't mention the name.
Existence of that.
And in the article, the implication was that somehow that was improper. That was not the case. So a CIA officer was not operating undercover. So the request for coordination was for a staff member to coordinate on the high side. So I communicated the name of a CIA officer not operating undercover, completely appropriate, who does openly and routinely coordinate with the White House as a member of my staff. So the intimation there that there was something inappropriate was clearly incorrect.
Did it occur to you that given the sensitive nature of this discussion, that it could just move to the high side?
So that was clearly, Senator, I think the intent was that this was initially set up by the National Security Advisor with the instruction that send a point of contact, and then you will be provided with information further on the high side for high side communication. So I think clearly it reflects that the National Security Advisor intended this to be, as it should have been, a mechanism for coordinating between senior level officials, but not a substitute for using high side or classified communications for anything that would be classified. And I think that that is exactly what did happen.
We're listening to Trump's intel chiefs before a Senate investigation hearing
information
on the Senate
weapon
Intelligence Committee.
packages, targets, or timing.
Not that I'm aware of.
Director Gabbard, same question.
Same answer, and defer to the Department of Defense on that question.
Well, those are two different answers, but you're saying that was not part of the conversation.
That's my knowledge.
The precise operational issues were not part of this conversation.
Correct.
Okay. I want to ask you, Director Gabbard, something on a very different track here, which is I very much agree with the conclusion of the ATA that foreign illicit drug actors are a major threat in the United States, and many of you have spoken to this today. Is the IC wrong in its omission of Canada as a source of illicit fentanyl in the ATA? I was surprised, given some of the rhetoric, that there is no mention of Canada in the ATA.
Senator, the focus in my opening and the ATA was really to focus on the most extreme threats in that area. And our assessment is that the most extreme threat related to fentanyl continues to come.
So Trump's intel chiefs are before a Senate Intelligence Committee just following a day after The Atlantic released an article saying that they were communicating via signal and had accidentally included the editor of The Atlantic in discussing operations against the Houthis, which is a terrorist organization based out of Yemen. So you have the CIA director, you have National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard, John Ratcliffe, CIA Director, Kash Patel, all these folks before the Senate this morning.
The numbers related to Canada in front of me at this time. I'd like to get back to you on the specifics of that answer.
It's less than 1% of the fentanyl that we are able to interdict. But if you have different information, I would very much welcome that.
Senator Budd.
Thank you all for being here. And Director Gabbard, prior to your role here, we had a big storm in western North Carolina, and you were among those first from outside our state to show up. So thank you for your work there. Thank you for your ongoing work there and that of your family as well. It was good to see them when out in western North Carolina last week, so thank you. Director Hawk, so what do we need to do in regards to Volt Typhoon? There's a lot of pre-positioning that went on there. So where are we with that? And what do we need to do in regards to our power companies, whether it's generation or distribution, Duke Energy in my home state, or even the rural electric co-ops? What do we need? What have we learned? And what can I?
So as you can see right now, Republicans asking general questions about border security and intelligence and national defense and that stuff, and Democrats going back to what happened with Signal. Very clear that the administration at this point is not denying that the conversation that took place via Signal was an actual legit conversation. So it's not made up. That's Jeffery Goldberg claiming that at one point he wasn't sure if this was real or fake or, an entrapment done by, some type of Soviet operation or whatever. But at this point, the administration admitting that conversation on Signal was legitimate, and then saying that Signal, I guess, is an appropriate. We caught part of that audio there. Did you hear John Ratcliffe, Bill, say that Signal was, I guess, an appropriate place to have some conversations, and that once it got detailed into war plans, it went over to high side, which is
I heard
more
that.
secure.
And although then you'd have to explain some of the information that Jeffrey Goldberg would have, like when the attack was going to take place, what was going to be targeted, the munitions being used, all those other conversations. I can't imagine those things being discussed on something like Signal are okay. And the other thing that I haven't heard them deal with yet is the Records Act, is all of this stuff is erased. And these are conversations that, according to what I understand in the law, should be preserved. There are other things that aren't and don't need to be preserved. But I think this would fall under the umbrella. I could be completely wrong about this not falling under the umbrella, but I've got a question about that as well. But the other one is no one's asked how come no one noticed Goldberg was on the chain.
Right.
No one double checked
and
that.
We missed the first part of this as we were wrapping up.
And
some
credit
interviews.
to Mary from Wyoming. She wants to know, who was Walls trying to invite?
Yeah, right.
Who's the missing person in this chain? And that's a great question from Mary in Wyoming. That he obviously was adding people to this chain. Who was he trying to add instead? Who was supposed to be there?
Well, he typed in Jeffrey and then was supposed to invite me. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm actually very tight with the intel community.
Good job.
And it was supposed to be Jeffrey Hunt. Ended up Jeffrey Goldstein.
Oh, darn.
Goldberg.
You just didn't scroll far enough in the alphabet.
All right, let's go back. We see Tulsi Gabbard talking.
Continues to be one of our most effective collection tools to ensure our national security. There are a number of reforms that the Senate passed, that Congress passed last year, that have proven to strengthen the protections of Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. In the short time that I've been in the seat, I've seen a few examples of that directly, most recently through the FISA court, calling in an amici to come in and weigh in on a dispute regarding provisions that would further protect Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. I'll be visiting our friends at the NSA next week and doing a quote-unquote ride-along to observe directly how those reforms that Congress passed are being implemented to protect Americans' civil liberties, and look forward to reporting back after I've had that opportunity.
Thank you. Director Patel.
Thank you, Senator. With my background in FISA and 702, I just want to clearly delineate between FISA Title 1.3 and 702 collection. We need to both ardently defend its use, but also ardently support reforms that allow the American public to entrust that those charged with those capabilities are not violating the Fourth Amendment or any other violation. Speaking to Title I, Title III, when it comes to U.S. persons, I have already included an amendment in terms of FBI language to make sure that when a U.S. person is targeted, that the FBI specifically is responsible for culling through all exculpatory information that is reasonably known and satisfying that burden and stating it in the application. When it comes to 702, Senator, some of the biggest enterprise efforts we have had to thwart national security risk would not have occurred if 702 collection had gone dark. And the FBI continues to use that information to protect the homeland. We've had multiple takedowns in the last 6 months based on 702 and interagency collection processes, but we just need to ensure the American public, and I'm working with my team, that even in the 702 sphere, American citizens' information is protected.
Thank you all. I look forward to the discussion in the closed session.
Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Gabbard, I didn't intend to get into the Jeffrey Goldberg story, but something you said has sort of puzzled me. According to open source reporting at 11:44 on the morning of March 15th, Secretary Hegseth put into this group text a detailed operation plan, including targets, the weapons we were going to be using, attack sequences, and timing. And yet you've testified that nothing in that chain was classified. Wouldn't that be classified? What if that had been made public that morning before the attack took place?
Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group at any time.
So,
and I
so the
defer,
attack sequencing and timing and weapons and targets you don't consider should have been classified?
I defer to the Secretary of Defense and the National Security Council on that question.
Well, you're the head of you're the head of the intelligence community, and you're supposed to know about classifications. So your testimony very clearly today is that nothing was in that set of texts that were classified. I'll follow up on Senator Wyden's question. If that's the case, please release that whole text stream so that the public can have a view of what actually transpired on this discussion. It's hard for me to believe that targets and timing and weapons would not have been classified. Well, let me move on. You approved this report, this annual report, prepared by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Is this submitted to the White House routinely in anticipation of its public release?
I don't know what you mean by submitted routinely.
Was this report submitted to the White House before its release today?
It was submitted to them once it was completed. I think probably around the same time it was sent to all of you.
I want to move on. One note that surprised me, I've been on this committee now this is my 13th year. Every single one of these reports that we have had has mentioned global climate change as a significant national security threat, except this one. Has something happened? Has global climate change been solved? Why is that not in this report? And who made the decision that it should not be in the report when it's been in every one of the 11 prior reports?
I can't speak to the decisions made previously, but this annual threat assessment has been focused very directly on the threats that we deem most critical to the United States and our national security. Obviously, we're aware of occurrences within the environment and how they may impact operations, but we're focused on the direct threats to Americans' safety, well-being, and security.
How about how they will impact mass migration, famine, dislocation, political violence, which is the finding, by the way, of the 2019 annual threat assessment under the first Trump administration? You don't consider that a significant national security threat?
For the intelligence community, being aware of the environment that we're operating in is a given. What I focused this annual threat assessment on, and the IC focused this threat assessment on, are the most extreme and critical direct threats to our national security.
Let me ask a direct question. Who decided climate change should be left out of this report after it's been in the prior 11? Where was that decision
I
made?
gave direction to our team at ODNI to focus on the most extreme and critical national security threats that we face.
Your direction include no comments on climate change?
Senator, as I said, I focused on the most extreme and direct national security threats.
That's not a response to my question.
That we face.
Did you instruct that there be no finding in terms of climate change in this report?
I don't recall giving that instruction.
All right, we're listening to the top intelligence leaders here in the Trump administration before Senate Intelligence Committee because of that Signal article that came out of Atlantic yesterday. I don't know if this was. I imagine this meeting was
Give me the agenda, and we just did a thing on climate change. Yeah, probably pre-scheduled.
Pre-scheduled, and then all of a sudden, this breaks yesterday. Shocking that it broke yesterday.
Although,
right.
I'm so impressed though that they're actually doing some form of investigation and post-mortem on this, at least asking questions, even if it is in this already scheduled, session.
Right.
At least they're doing something, because that was one of the questions I had. I'm like, is there going to be any investigation? Because we would have, in previous administrations where it's different White House and different Senate and Congress or House, you'd have a lot of investigations. If it was a Republican-controlled Senate or House, when there was a Biden administration, yes, we'd have week-long hearings. And if it was the other way, if it's a Trump administration, you've got Democrats controlling either branches of Congress, you'd have week-long hearings and it would be prime time and blah, 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 blah. But we'll get back to the hearings in just a second. I want to talk to you about Wound Care Associates of Colorado. They are changing the game here in Colorado. And basically, if you have a slow-healing cut, diabetic ulcer, pressure sore, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But refusing to fix that problem doesn't make the problem fixed. Understand? You use that electrical tape to cover up the check engine light on the dashboard. Doesn't mean the engine's okay. It just means you can't see it. Ignoring the problem isn't going to make it better. And that's what Wound Care Associates of Colorado really takes to heart. Because they know that torn skin and tissue can be a very big deal because dirt, germs, and bacteria can get into your body right away. That's why it's incredibly challenging to handle those slow healing cuts, pressure sores, diabetic ulcers. One of the kids in my family is receiving treatment from Wound Care Associates of Colorado right now because of a slow healing wound after some surgery. It just wasn't healing up properly. So when I needed to make a phone call, the only place I went was Wound Care Associates of Colorado because they do it differently. You can reach out to them at coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com. Let me tell you what makes them different. First of all, they go old school on you. They're offering concierge service without the concierge price. When you contact Wound Care Associates of Colorado, they set up an in-home visit from their wound-authorized nurse practitioner. It means you can change orders and everything else, but best of all, that's like the house calls. So you get the nurse coming right to your home and giving you the treatment you need right there in the comfort, convenience, and privacy of where you live. It is a custom-designed treatment plan based on you and your needs, and most importantly, it is designed to maximize your healing outcomes. That seems like a fancy way of just saying they want the wound to close because then the dirt, germs, and bacteria can't get inside. I've shared a story about my aunt, how she was exposed to MRSA because a wound that she had that wasn't healing on her leg, they just maintained it, meaning they left it open. So when the MRSA came in contact with her, boy, did it have a party. She spent a number of days, weeks, and months inside of a hospital because of that. Don't mess around. When one of my kids had a slow healing cut right now, something that was part of a surgery that was attempted, and successful surgery, but the wound isn't healing. We went to 2 follow-ups with a surgeon. They wanted to maintain the wound. Nope, not the way we operate. There's somebody here in town that does it better. Wound Care Associates of Colorado. I'm not taking the chance and have the experience that my aunt did. You shouldn't either. Don't mess around. Somebody in your family has that diabetic ulcer, pressure sore, slow healing cut. Reach out to Wound Care Associates of Colorado at coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com. They know that ignoring the problem doesn't fix the problem, and maintaining the problem, that doesn't fix it either. We'll be back right after this. We'll catch up more with the Senate hearing on what went on with the Signal chat and how did Jeffery Goldberg of The Atlantic, the editor, get invited onto a top secret conversation about whether or not we were going to attack the Houthis. This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, Michael Bennett is asking Trump's intel chief some questions right now before the U.S. Senate. Let's go back
I
live.
didn't see those comments. I don't know Jeff Goldberg.
So do you share that view of the Secretary of Defense?
Well, I don't have a view on.
Okay. Do you assuming that he has that view, I'm curious about whether you are the CIA director, okay? This has happened. We know it's happened. Did Jeff Goldberg somehow, did he create a hoax that allowed him to become part of this signal thread? Please answer the question. You don't insult the intelligence of the American people. Did he invite himself to the signal thread?
I don't know how he was invited, but clearly he was added.
Clearly it was. Finish your sentence, please.
Clearly he was added to the signal group. Your question is,
you don't know that the president's national security advisor invited him to join the signal thread? Everybody in America knows that. Does the CIA director not know that?
I've seen conflicting reports about who added the reporter to the signal messaging group.
You think that it's perfectly appropriate that there was a reporter added, especially one that the Secretary of Defense says is deceitful, highly discredited, a so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes over and over again? Is your testimony that it was appropriate that he was added to this signal thread?
No, of course not. And
why did you not call?
Hold on, Senator. You're mischaracterizing my testimony.
Good. You answered the question. Let me ask you: when he was added to the thread, you're the CIA director. Why didn't you call out that he was present on the signal thread?
I don't know if you use signal messaging app.
I do. Not for classified information, not for targeting,
well, neither
not
do I,
for anything
Senator.
remote.
Neither do I, Senator.
Well, that's what your testimony is today.
It absolutely is not, Senator. Were you not listening at the beginning?
No.
When I said that I was using it as permitted, it is permissible to use.
I agree that's your testimony.
Yeah.
I agree that's your testimony. You asked me if I use it, and I said not for targeting, not for classified information.
And I said I don't either.
I also know Jeff Goldberg. I don't use it to communicate with him, but you thought it was appropriate. By the way, I think he's one of the more outstanding journalists in America, but I'm shocked to find him on a thread that he's reading in the parking lot of a grocery store in Washington, D.C., and your testimony as the director of the CIA is that it's totally appropriate. No. Is it appropriate?
No,
that the
Director, that is not what I.
Okay,
when did
go
I say
ahead,
it was?
please.
When did I use the word appropriate?
Well, go ahead, please.
Well, I didn't.
That everybody in America.
So clearly,
there's nothing to
Senator,
see here is what your testimony is.
No, I never said that.
This is just a normal day at the CIA where we chat about this kind of stuff over Signal. In fact, it's so normal that the last administration left it here for us. That's your testimony today.
That's your testimony.
No, that's
Senator.
not my testimony. That's what you said.
I didn't say any of those things that you just related, Senator.
I heard you say it. We'll let the American people decide. Let me ask you one final point. I'm out of time.
It. Well, are you going to give me a chance?
Is it appropriate? Did you know that the president's Middle East advisor was in Moscow on this thread while you were, as director of the CIA, participating in this thread? Were you aware of that? Are you aware of that today?
I'm not aware of that today.
This sloppiness, this incompetence, this disrespect for our intelligence agencies and the personnel who work for them is entirely unacceptable. It's an embarrassment.
Senator?
You need to do better. You need to do better. Thank you. I'm being gavelled by the chairman.
Oh, Michael Bennett bringing this.
Wow.
Spice.
Where'd that come from?
Thank you all
These
for
are
being
Trump's intelligence chiefs before the Senate Intelligence Committee following
I'll be asking some
an article
follow-up
coming out from the
questions,
Atlantic
clarifications
about
the
texting via
episode
Signal.
in a closed setting, and try and work with all of you to bring clarity to that situation. It appears to me there's some unanswered questions. It'll take some time, I think, to get there in a more dispassionate setting.
Director Gabbard, I'm going to begin today asking you some questions about emerging technology. This has been a real point of emphasis, I know, of our broader national security community for a period of time. We know that PRC is making generational investments in certain emerging tech, AI, biotech, and other areas of technology to reduce their vulnerability.
So we've been watching this morning. Republicans talking about other aspects. It's classic DC. Republicans talking, hey, let's talk about border security. How great you're doing there. And then Democrats jumping on the Signal report that came from the Atlantic, this article that Trump's intelligence chiefs were essentially discussing the attack that took place against the Houthis in Yemen via Signal. We'll continue with this coverage, try to get back to you when the Democrats are questioning, because that's the fun stuff we're listening to. The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Mark Kelly is now grilling Trump's intel chiefs. Let's go back to him.
I don't recall specific timing.
Was there any
I
mention?
won't get into the detail of the conversation, but obviously there was a significant amount of planning and internal discussions that had occurred prior to and outside of this Signal chat.
Mr. Ratcliffe, you're nodding your head. Any mention of any military unit whatsoever? Mr. Ratcliffe?
Not that I recall.
Ms. Gabbard?
Not that I recall.
Okay, so I understand that DoD policy prohibits discussion of even what is called controlled unclassified information, or CUI, on unsecured devices. Are both of you aware of that DoD policy?
I haven't read that policy.
Not familiar with the DoD policy, but I would say that the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for DoD in deciding what would be classified information.
Ms. Gabbard, does the intelligence community have a policy that prohibits discussion of controlled unclassified information?
Yes.
It does. Okay. Controlled unclassified information, according to DoD, includes information that is information that has not been approved for public release. Would you, of what's been disclosed publicly of the signal chain, would either of you feel that that would be approved for public release? Ms. Gabbard.
The discussion that took place in that Signal chat group was a conversation reflecting national security leaders and the vice president around the president's objectives.
So yes or no, would you approve that for public release?
I don't feel I can answer that question here.
Because of the nature of this hearing?
Because of the nature of a private discussion that took place between individual leaders in our government.
It would make sense that you would not approve it for public release, wouldn't it?
There are other factors that would go into that consideration.
Mr. Ratcliffe, yes or no?
I wouldn't approve the release of classified information. Again, as I've said, my
I'm not talking about
understanding is
classified information, Mr. Ratcliffe. I'm talking about information that has not been approved for public release. That is information that is considered controlled, unclassified information.
The principals that would have been on that would have been individuals capable of approving that for public release.
Do you, I got 20 seconds. The deliberation as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country, would you consider that classified information, Ms. Gabbard?
Well, the information was not classified.
This is not, I'm not talking about this. I'm just talking about deliberation as from principals as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country. Would you consider that classified information? I'm not talking about what happened this week.
There are other factors that would go into determining that classification.
Mr. Ratcliffe, the deliberation between principals in our national security apparatus about whether or not to strike another country, would you consider that to be classified information?
Pre-decisional strike deliberation should be conducted through classified channels.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may, I just want to return, Mr. Ratcliffe, to your answer there in part to Senator Kelly. It's been raised several occasions now in this hearing about whether classified information was discussed in this chat. And you mentioned about the Secretary of Defense being what you called, I think, the original classification authority.
Correct. Correct.
I think it's important for the public to understand that although you and Director Gabbard are original classification authorities on many matters, you're not that for all matters that might be classified in the government. Is that right?
That's correct.
So if the Secretary of State has classified sensitive diplomatic details, that's his authority. If the Secretary of Energy has sensitive classified information about our national laboratories, that's his authority. And the two of you can't speak to other departments who have their own original classification authority, and which, of course, as Director Gabbard said, ultimately rested with one person, the President of the United States. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. It looks like the Vice Chairman wants to weigh in as well.
Just very briefly. I mean, I think it strains the audience and the watching public's credibility if we're talking about timing, packages, that somehow this would be okay to put out, or just, frankly, senior American officials trashing Europe. I've been around this for a while. This is not information you generally put out. And the notion there's not even acknowledgement of, hey, gosh, we screwed up, is stunning to me. And the idea somehow, well, none of this was classified, but we can't talk about it here. You can't have it both ways.
I think the witness's point is that they can't speak for every official in the government who has original classification authority.
Chairman, I don't, that's not what I'm not trying to litigate that. I'm trying to litigate on the face unless, as Senator Bennett said, this reporter is somehow making this all up. And I think the White House has acknowledged that the text chain that he submitted was authentic. It strains my mind to think, again, it strains my mind if the shoe had been on the other foot, what my colleagues would be saying about this. And again, we're going to get to the bottom of it. And I appreciate your comments, but you guys have both testified under law. There's nothing classified in that information. There was nothing, in a sense, I've not heard either one of you say, gosh, we screwed up. So we'll find out. This is too important to our national security. And again, I know we've got more members to cross.
They testified, is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's no intelligence community classified information. Is that correct?
That's
Director
correct.
Ratcliffe, is that correct? Director Gabbard?
Yes, Chairman.
Well, again.
That's not correct. She said repeatedly there was nothing classified. Period.
Right, period. You can't have it both. And again, we'll see. I cannot believe this is not going to come out. And if it's not classified, again, we'd ask you to give it to the public today. I'm sure one of your aides back there probably got it on paper. If you got it here, it's not classified, stand by your position. Or is this just one more example of a careless approach to how we keep our secrets in this administration?
With apologies to Senator Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here. I want to explore a little bit about Ukraine, and I'll direct this to Director Ratcliffe or Director Krause. The ATA assesses that, quote, the grinding war of attrition in Ukraine, quote, will lead to a gradual but steady erosion of Kyiv's positions on the battlefield. Are Ukrainian forces at any significant risk of collapse this year?
Before I turn it over to Director Ratcliffe, I think both sides are working through the equipment that they need, the industrial base they need to support.
Wow, the fireworks in Washington, D.C. Bill, we're going to have so much to talk about tomorrow. We're going to give some homework assignments. Watch this hearing. Join us on the conversation tomorrow. We want to hear from you. This is going to be interesting. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Have a good day.